Yo, what's up, guys? Welcome to the Awesemo.com NBA Deeper Dive. Got a 6-game slate that turned into 5. It's been all around a pretty crazy day, but fortunately, we got the perfect guy to help us break this one down. Adam, should my money share. Adam, how you doing, man?
Doing pretty well. This one seems like one of the more entertaining slates we've gotten to talk about. A bunch of guys that kind of grew up watching, coming back and playing some minutes tonight, probably. So it should be a good time.
Oh man, yeah, Joe Johnson signing. That was one I didn't expect. Maybe we'll see some Darko Milicic sooner or later.
Yeah, I was saying to you before the show, I went back just to see who was in the Joe Johnson draft class. Kwame Brown, number 1 overall pick. Pau Gasol, Gilbert Arenas, Jason Richardson, Richard Jefferson. Not somebody, didn't expect anybody from that draft class to be suiting up today.
That'd be pretty cool if Richard Jefferson signed and then he went from being a broadcaster to in the game that same day.
They brought it up to him on a broadcast the other day and he was just like, absolutely not.
Yeah, I guess probably is pretty chill not playing in NBA. So who knows what Joe Johnson's doing. Guys, we're sponsored by Prize Picks today. I should know in prop betting, you can actually kind of take advantage of some of these injuries by betting overs early in the day. We just got the news that Kevin Huerter is out. And then if you bet the overs on any of the Atlanta guys, it's going to look mighty good. So I've always kind of been on the mantra. It's you bet overs early in the day, unders later in the day. I don't know. Adam, have you gotten into the props yet?
No, Maryland's still dragging their heels on getting anything on the internet up and running. So.
Well, if you need anyone to bet for you, I'm sure there's plenty of people in the chat that would take you up on it. But anyway, let's talk a little bit about yesterday's slate. It felt like maybe one that wasn't quite as crazy injury-wise as today's. What it stood out to you yesterday?
Yeah, I mean, you had the Dallas-Minnesota game that was pretty much just shorthanded on both sides. You had the Knicks still playing really short, but it wasn't quite as crazy as today because for the most part, I mean, the Dallas-Minnesota game kind of aside, it was pretty easy to know what to expect in terms of minutes from guys. Tonight, I think, is totally different in that obviously we'll make our best guesses and we have educated guesses here, but I mean, when you have Joe Johnson is expected to play, Lance Stevenson is expected to play. We have guys entering rotations that weren't even on these teams 2 or 3 days ago, so there's nothing to look back at and try and figure out draw conclusions from.
Well, if Isaiah Thomas could do it, then Joe Johnson certainly is going to put up 20 points today. Unfortunately, you can't play him, but it'll be fun watching some of these old school guys get back in the mix today. Honestly, I have no clue how old some of these guys are. Like Lance Stevenson, he's not like out of NBA age, right? Is he in his mid-30s or something?
Stevenson, I think, is mid-30s.
Okay. It's interesting to see like when these guys kind of get out of the league. Damian Lee.
Oh, Lance Stevenson is 31. Lance Stevenson is younger than me.
Damn, yeah, I thought he might be young. I thought he was older than that, but maybe a guy that actually could stick in the NBA if he plays his cards right in this 10 day.
He's been averaging 35 minutes per game in the G League this year.
Oh damn, wow, he's been hustling then. Or I mean grinding. Anyway, let's get into some of these games. But before we do, guys, if you could hit the like button, that helps us get that positive feedback we need. We're going to need a lot of it today because things are changing every minute and we need to give you our best plays. Also, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. That lets you know when we go live. And we have a lot of premium tools every day on awesemo.com. Today for NBA, we have the main slate ownership projections. So we can reference some of those throughout the show. I'm sure that ownership is going to be changing quick, especially Herter being out. That's going to be a big one. We'll get to that game in a bit. But Cleveland at Boston. This one probably one of the less appealing games, but that being said, on the Cleveland side, there are some notable injuries. You have Okoro, Mobley, and Jared Allen out today. Those are 3 starters. So let's start with the starting lineup. What are you expecting for the Cavs today?
So I'm expecting Garland, Markkanen, Chetty. I think Garland, Markkanen, Chetty, Wade, and Love if Love is in. If Love is out, I have no idea.
Yeah, seriously, that's about all we can say at this point with Love questionable. Thank you, Poppy, for the $5 super chat. He says, shout out 69,420. We are on the road to 69,420 followers. So if you guys can subscribe, help us get there by Christmas, that'll be huge. All right, so Love's questionable. If he does play, then like he's been someone that they've been kind of limiting the minutes throughout the season, just because I feel like he's not part of their like long-term plans at all. So that being said, like it does seem like they're a pretty good team and they're going to be motivated to try to win. So does that mean Love is going to play a lot of minutes and maybe be a good DFS option?
I think so. So I mean, it's kind of tough to gauge, how much they've really been limiting his minutes by design and how much of it is he plays behind Evan Mobley and Jared Allen. So like his minutes should be limited to some extent. Like you said, though, Cleveland is a good team. I'm sure they would prefer to win this game. If Love is good to go, I'd be surprised if you got anything crazy like, 34, 36 minutes. But even if you get to like, let's say 28 minutes from Kevin Love, he's going to look really, really good at only $5,700 on DraftKings. He gets a bump in rebounding percentage. He's at 21.5% without Allen or Mobley on the floor this year. He's got like a 26% usage rate over that time as well. That should come down a little bit because you will still have Darius Garland on the floor, but the rebounds should certainly be there. He should just get pretty much every rebound he wants. There's no other good rebounders on this team. So I think looks really good. Even if you were to play like 24 minutes, he probably is passable at 5,700. And if he gets additional minutes, he starts to look really, really good.
Yeah, I think he looks really solid, and it's always fun to roster someone that we don't usually get a ton of chances to. So that'll be nice. Okay, so if he's out, does Dean Wade start at the 5? Like,
yeah, I was gonna say my guess if he's out is that Rubio starts and Wade starts at the 5, or Markkanen starts at the 5, however you want to word that. I would guess that they go Garland, Rubio, Chetty, Markkanen, Wade if Love is out, and then if Love is in, Rubio is the first guy off the bench.
Okay, so you think Osman's going to start?
Yeah, obviously just a guess, but I think it makes more sense to have Rubio running with the second unit than to prioritize Chetty there. But you can also just stagger minutes, so it's not like it makes a big difference.
Yeah, that's true. It does feel like Osman, for whatever reason, he like just seems to be the last in the pecking order as far as like starting. But it definitely could happen today, if any day. So what about the rest of the team? Osman, if he gets the minutes, he looks like he's a good value at 4,500 on DraftKings, 5,300 on Yahoo. Marketing also maybe gets a little bump with some guys out. Is there anyone of this priority in the Cavs for you?
I mean, I think that for the most part, at least, so like on DraftKings, Rubio, I think looks pretty good at 6,200. Even if he's coming off the bench, he's likely to play a bunch of minutes still. Because again, this is a contending team in the East. I don't think it's a game where they're going to just, throw a bunch of G League players in for a bunch of minutes. So Rubio would still look pretty good. Marketing in tournaments at relatively low ownership on DraftKings, I think makes sense. He's likely to play a lot of minutes. He's expensive enough at 6K that the ownership's probably going to be relatively low. But assuming he's not going to play, every minute alongside Kevin Love, he's the next best option in terms of grabbing rebounds. He should benefit from Mobley and Allen being out as well. So I think he looks good. And then on FanDuel, he's only 4,900. So he'll pull a little bit more ownership, but he's just pretty cheap there. Chetty and Wade both look fine. Chetty's averaging about 0.94 fantasy points per minute this year. He's likely to get, I think, 30 plus minutes, especially if he starts. Dean Wade is not a very good fantasy producer, but he's also only 3,800 and likely to play low to mid 30s. So I think there's a lot of guys you can get to from Cleveland. I think that Love looks the best, and then the rest of those guys kind of fall in behind them. Darius Garland, 9,700 on DraftKings is a really tough price point to get to, but he's also not going to get much ownership. So, it is always kind of appealing on a 5-game slate to get somebody as good as Darius Garland is at low ownership, but pretty tough to get there, I think.
Yeah, definitely. On today's slate, if a guy is tough to get to, like, you probably shouldn't worry about it because there's like so many smash plays. On the Boston side, we have Josh Richardson and Al Horford out, as well as Grant Williams. So, I guess, are you expecting Smart, Schroeder, Brown, Tatum, Williams?
Yes.
Okay. So, I think Horford being out kind of opens the door for Robert Williams to play a good amount of minutes, especially since Grant Williams is also out. Last game, we saw Enes Kanter Enes Freedom. Don't cancel me, bros. He played 40 minutes. So, like, they're not afraid to run out their big men, like, huge minutes. Earlier in the season, Robert Williams was getting like 30 minutes a game. And it seems like they really like him over Enes Freedom. So he's maybe someone that I'm kind of intrigued by, but how do you feel about Robert Williams?
I'm really interested in Williams in tournaments. He's only 5,500 on DraftKings. He's projected for 6% ownership right now. I think he benefits in a couple of different ways here because, for one, like you said, the front court is shorthanded. You don't have Horford, you don't have Grant Williams. It's likely that they prefer him over Enes Freedom by a pretty substantial margin. So we've seen a total of 6 games so far this year where Al Horford's been out. Williams has averaged 33 and a half minutes per game in those games. In the 2 games he played before he missed the last game for personal reasons, he played 30 minutes against the Knicks. He played 36 minutes against Golden State, but he's also averaged 1.04 DraftKings points per minute in those games. We've seen the games that he plays alongside Horford where his production suffers, but he's produced really well. And kind of just looking at where some other places have Williams projected, it seems like people are kind of low on him. And so it makes me even more confident in the fact that, we have that 6% ownership projection and that people just kind of aren't there. So I really like him in tournaments.
Nice. I think he's kind of intriguing. The one thing I've noticed, his rebounding's gone way down this year, and I think it's due to Horford being a good rebounder, so that's kind of a reason to be encouraged. Jaylen Brown has gotten back to his full minutes. There's a huge price discrepancy between FanDuel and DraftKings. On DraftKings, he's 9,900. On FanDuel, Brown is 7,500. Does that make him just a really good play on FanDuel and someone to avoid on DraftKings completely?
That's pretty much how I see it. Looks really good on FanDuel. On DraftKings, he's in that Darius Garland territory where if you get him in lineups, then fine. Obviously, he's really good, but there's guys that are a little bit more expensive than him that I like more. There's at least one guy in his price range that I like more, and then there's a lot of cheaper options that I like more.
They must be doing COVID pricing on DraftKings because Tatum is 11.1K. Like, I just don't understand how they're coming up with these, but. As a result, like, no one on Boston is really looking appealing on DraftKings aside from Time Lord. You have any interest?
That's pretty much how I see it. Marcus Smart will be the second guy at 5,700, just still likely to play 34 minutes or so. But again, that's nothing more than sort of just like a contrarian tournament piece.
Yeah, definitely. The next game is the one that I think we're gonna have a lot of plays from. Atlanta facing Orlando. For Atlanta, Trey Young is out. That's huge. Kevin Herter also got ruled out 15 minutes ago. They are regaining Bogdan Bogdanovic. However, in addition, Timothy Luau-Cabarro is out. Clint Capella is out. So let's start with center. A lot of times in the past when Capella's been out, they've started John Collins at center, but they are pretty short-handed today. And Orlando does start. They're most likely starting Rolo at the 5 and Wendell Carter at the 4. So a pretty big front court. What do you think that Atlanta's going to do here?
Yeah, when I did the show with Josh this morning, I thought John Collins was going to start at center, but since then we've lost Lou Williams and we've lost Kevin Herter. So part of my thinking in Collins starting at center was that this team still had plenty of guards and wings that they could use. Now they just lost 2 of their main ones. So I think it's likely that you get Gorgie Jang starting at center here. We know Okongwu is still on a minutes limit, so it would make sense, I think, to have Jang play something like 22 to 24 minutes as the starter. You have Okongwu play 16 minutes off the bench. The rest of the center minutes go to John Collins, but that allows Collins to play the bulk of his minutes at the 4. He's probably backed up by Jalen Johnson. And then you kind of can still, you still have plenty of bodies to fill out those other 3 positions. So that to me makes sense, that, that kind of combined with the fact they're playing a big front court.
Yeah, definitely. So Gorgie Jang does start, and we should know before lax. So I'm not going to stress out too much about who's starting here. I'm just going to assume that we know, because you can always remake your lineups. So if Gorgie Jenks does start and he plays in the mid-20s, he's only 3,100 on DraftKings and 3,700 on FanDuel. So he looks like a complete smash play. Like, how do you see it?
Yeah, if Jang starts at 3,100, he looks great.
Is he the kind of lock button play, or is it just that, like, on today's slate there might be several really good values?
Yeah, the reason I kind of hesitate is that, we haven't gotten to the game yet, but you also have Nikola Jokic on this slate. So it's always hard to say that there's a lock center unless you're just playing 100% Jang plus Jokic, which I guess is fine. But there's a lot of good center options. So I think he's a priority for sure if he starts. In terms of will he be in 100% of my lineups, I think that's a little bit tougher just because the position is so strong.
Nice. I kind of, yeah, I think that's the big thing. It's a huge difference in roster construction with Jang versus Jokic. So it might depend on what else happens. The rest of your lineup, John Collins, do you think he's going to get a bump with Capella out, or is it pretty much the same thing we're used to for him?
So I think he gets a bump in usage with Trey Young out. Since last season, he's played a total of 597 minutes without Young on the floor. He has a 24.4% usage rate. If you take Capella off, I think it even goes up a little bit more, but that's probably accounting for a lot of time with backups. But even at 24.4%, it looks pretty good. He's at 1.08 DraftKings points per minute. Whatever minutes he plays at center, he's going to be more productive as well, though, because the rebounding numbers go up. He's always just been much more productive as a center. So I expect him to play more than 0 minutes at center still, which is nice. And then to get a usage bump as well. So it makes Collins look really good at only $7,300 in a good matchup as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think he's a really solid way to get a guy in the mid range. The guy that's standing out the most to me is Delon Wright. I think that with Trey Young out there and Lou Will out, those are the 2 guys that have really played point guard other than Wright. So I'm kind of wondering, like, what is the minute ceiling for Wright? It might not even matter because he's cheap and he's probably going to play like enough minutes to be a lock. But do you consider Delon Wright a lock, and how many minutes do you think he's going to play?
Pretty close to it. I wouldn't be surprised at all if he plays like 32 to 36 minutes. He played 29 minutes on December 3rd. There's no real reason to think that he's, not in shape to play 30 plus minutes here. And one thing to keep in mind also, Atlanta's not a great team, but they are in the playoff race in the East. So this is another team where I think you can feel pretty confident that they're going to at least put some effort into winning this game. I don't think it's likely that, because they still have 11 guys available. So there's always the risk where they just run like a really spread out rotation. But given that Atlanta would still like to win this game, I think it's pretty likely that they give their actual rotation players as many minutes as they can play.
Yeah, definitely. So is Wright a guy you're locking in? I feel like I might have him 100% here.
I wouldn't be surprised if I did. I mean, if not 100, I fully expect to have a lot. He's played 338 minutes without Young since last year, 0.76 DraftKings points per minute. So not great production there, but he is someone that we've seen plenty in the past, that can have ceiling games for sure. And at only 4,600, even if he, produces around 0.8 fantasy points per minute, he's going to look great if he gets 30 plus minutes.
Nice. Yeah, I think that it's really probably one of the best plays I've seen in a while. Now, what about some of the new guys they signed? Wes Iwundu, kind of NBA rotational player for a while, Lance Stevenson and Malcolm Hill. Do you think they could be spoilers at all because they're not in the player pool?
Possibly. So it doesn't look like Iwundu is active tonight, at least according to the list I'm looking at, but Stevenson and Hill are. But my assumption is that, I still think the Hawks mostly have enough players to run a rotation with the guys that they've had. I think Lance Stevenson is probably the first of the new guys to get in because, again, he has been playing 35 minutes per game in the G League. He potentially is still, pretty good at basketball too. But I think that outside of him, I'm not too worried about the other pieces. If you told me one of the non-player pool guys took a bunch of minutes from the guys that were playing, Stevenson would be my guess. But I still feel pretty confident in Delon Wright's minutes. I feel confident in Cam Reddish's minutes at 3,700. I think Jalen Johnson plays enough minutes at 3K that he's a viable option. So I'm not overly concerned about those other guys, even though they do have 11 total bodies tonight.
So yeah, I didn't realize how many guys they had active because obviously they're most of these guys haven't played before. So it does look like they have another point guard, Sharif Cooper, that it must be their G League guy. But yeah, I'm kind of wondering Delon Wright, is he gonna play 40 minutes? Anyway, I'm not okay, so I think that the regulars on Atlanta are all really good plays pretty much, but Delon Wright is definitely I'm considering locking on Orlando. We have some questionable guys here, Cole Anthony and Wendell Carter. So have you seen anything about those guys? Because that seems like it's going to be huge if those guys are both out.
I haven't seen anything on those two. It does make a difference for sure. If those guys are in, so Orlando's one of the teams that they've been shorthanded for a while, at least to some extent. So they have gotten more expensive. They don't give you a million good value plays like Atlanta does. But if Anthony and Carter were to be ruled out, you would get some value opening up. You have Tim Frazier, who is, I believe, in the player pool, but who is with Atlanta now. So if Anthony were out, you are potentially getting point guard minutes from a 3K Tim Frazier. You're getting probably more minutes for guys like Okeke. If Carter is out, we saw him start alongside actually saw Okeke start alongside Carter with Bamba out before. But I would expect, he starts alongside Lopez here if Carter is out. So there are still minutes to go around for Orlando, and more so if Anthony and Carter sit. But this team as a whole, I think, is priced more appropriately than Atlanta is.
Speak of the devil, we just got the news Cole Anthony and Wendell Carter are both out. So is this Okeke night?
Not to the extent that it was in those other games when he was 3,400 or whatever, but he's still likely to play a bunch of minutes at 5,200. He played 35 minutes last game. I mean, we basically have a blueprint here of what they did with those two out before. The only difference is that now you also have Michael Mulder out. He played 30 minutes in that game. That's why I think it's likely that Tim Frazier could step into a decent role, although we just got Gravett listed as the starter. He played 25 minutes last game. I would assume he's playing 30 something minutes. Tim Frazier backs him up. And then you're still getting, 35, 36 minutes from Harris, Okeke, Lopez, Wagner.
Oh man, Tim Frazier. I haven't thought about that guy in a while, but do you remember that game where Tim Frazier played all 48 minutes in regulation? That was insane. Yep. Kind of it wouldn't be surprising if we saw something like that one of these days from someone, but okay, so is Gravett someone that you'd consider in fantasy if he's starting? Because it does look like he's 3,200 on DraftKings and 3,900 on FanDuel.
Yeah, I mean, he's 3,200. He's likely to play a bunch of minutes here. Like I said, he played 25 last game, and now you just took 30 minutes from Michael Mulder out of the rotation. So it's pretty likely you get 30 plus. We have virtually no sample on this guy in the NBA, 79 total minutes, including the preseason, but he's at 0.77 DraftKings points per minute. That does come on the back of a 70% true shooting percentage, 13.9% usage rate, 6.9% rebounding percentage, 13.7% assist percentage. At the very least, he is someone that you can throw darts at, assuming he's not going to get a ton of ownership. If he does get a ton of ownership, I think there's plenty of other plays you can go to, but the minutes are going to be there for him, and he's pretty much an unknown in terms of how he's going to produce at the NBA level.
Oh man, point guard though, it is one of the positions that seems like anyone can be productive in.
Yep.
It's like a wing that's not a rotational player, or like that's a little bit riskier. So that, like, how confident from 1 to 10 would you feel with Hassani Gravett?
6 to 7. I mean, like at 3,200, it's kind of tough. Like you said, for like a point guard or a center, it's kind of tough for them to let you down entirely as long as they play 30 plus minutes. In the G League this year, it looks like he's played 12. He's played 12 games, averaged 34.5 minutes per game, 13.6 points, 5.2 assists, 5.2 rebounds. Last year in 42 games, 11.7 points, 3.3 assists, 4.1 rebounds. I mean, I don't even really know how to contextualize those stats, but it does at least look like he's at a lower level. At least he's capable of like getting rebounds and assists in addition to scoring, which, at least he's not. It doesn't suggest that he's one dimensional. So I think he looks good at 3,200. I can only be so confident though in a guy that has played like nothing at the NBA level.
Definitely, yeah. So do we need to be looking up his G League stats?
I mean, I just did on Basketball Reference.
Nice. Okay, so I think he's pretty intriguing. Definitely someone that kind of risky, but the value is good. Okiki looks like a good play if we're projecting mid-30s minutes. And then Rolo, like I thought this guy didn't have upside, and I like had him in my lineup, one of the slates, and I didn't have Cousins. I'm like, oh my God, this makes no sense, but it worked out. He's played like 32 and then 38 minutes in the last 2 games. Is he someone that we should be going back to?
Yeah, I mean, he's another one of these good center options that we're referring to. So kind of, why I said Jang looks great if he starts, but I'd pause on, the lock button thing. Lopez at 4,600, if he's going to play 36 minutes, he's going to look good. And then one other thing to mention too, Franz Wagner only played 28 minutes last game. It's very likely he plays more than that here. And he actually has a 21.7% assist percentage without Anthony or Suggs on the floor this year. So you could certainly see more in the way of peripherals from him than we normally see. He also has a 22% usage rate. If you take RJ Hampton off the floor as well, 76 minutes, Wagner has a 31% usage rate and a 24.5% assist percentage. So he's someone that I think, even though he's relatively expensive now, I think that he could really benefit in a variety of ways from these guys being out.
Yeah, definitely. So ranking the Orlando guys, how are you approaching this team?
So putting aside that there's a ton of opportunity cost at center, I think it's either Lopez or Wagner 1, either Lopez or Wagner 2, probably Okiki 3, Gravett 4 based on salary, Harris 5, random Tim Frazier shares 6th.
Nice. All right, that sounds good. Guys, if you haven't checked out our sponsor Prize Picks, they have a lot of prop-based contests that you can play, and you can do this in a lot of states that you can't normally bet props, which is cool because they have like DFS style stuff. So you can use the promo code AWESEMO for $100 first match deposit. You build a up to 5-player lineup to win up to 10x, and you can do it in a lot of different sports. I stick to NBA and NFL mostly, but they have stuff like college, MMA, women's basketball, like pretty much anything that they have on TV, like you can bet on Prize Picks. and you can get a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum if you sign up and make a deposit. You just have to play in one of their contests, and then you will get a email within 24 to 48 hours. So that's $120 value that you can get for signing up for Prize Picks. Plus, you get the $100 match opponent bonus. Let's look at some of the props. So what props are you looking at tonight, and ones that are particularly on Prize Picks?
You can go first.
All right. So what I'm really interested in is this Orlando news just hit. So I'm like, okay, so they have Okiki at 12.5 points. We have a little bit higher than that. Gary Harris, 13.5. Wagner, 17.5. So I'm trying to like look at these and see, are they like adjusting for the news? Or it looks like they did a pretty good job at that. What are you seeing?
Yeah, I mean, Wagner seems, I think, a little bit low. Like 17.5 is probably a good line before those guys were ruled out. I think once you bump his usage rate, he'll be a little bit higher. So I do like the over on 17.5 for Wagner. I think Cleveland is potentially another team you can look at, but it does seem like those lines are pretty efficient. But I do like I for sure like the over on Wagner. I think Harris is probably closer. Okiki probably about where it should be too. Beyond Wagner, I like the over on 9.5 points for Robert Williams. You and I talked about it. I think it's likely he plays quite a few more minutes than normal here.
Nice. Yeah, so I think this site is pretty cool. One I'm seeing is Grayson Allen over 13.5 points. There are already some guys out for Milwaukee, and if let's see, are there questionables on Milwaukee tonight? It looks like most of those guys are back, but still a good value. So guys, use that promo code Awesemo for Prize Picks, get that free $100 bonus, and you can get that free month. So make sure to check it out. Let's go to Denver at OKC. Denver 6-point favorite. They were a team that I think they had their last game canceled, or they had one of their games postponed for COVID, but now seems like they got a pretty decent squad going. The only questionable player is Aaron Gordon and JaMychal Green, but that doesn't matter. So you're mentioning Jokic is someone that you're kind of planning around today. How are you prioritizing Jokic?
So I think it's a really interesting spot because on the one hand, there's just a ton of good cheap center plays, but and normally that would make it a little bit more difficult to get to Jokic since they play the same position. But there's also a lack of pay up options elsewhere. Like that's why I think, at least on DraftKings, I really like what they did with the pricing because, you know, Tatum at 11-1, you're kind of clearly overpaying for him, but you could still make the case to to get there if you pay down for two high upside centers, you know, then you end up having to forego Jokic. You pay up for Tatum, you pay up for Garland, you pay up for whoever. But the other thing that I think works in Jokic's favor is so there's not like clear top end guys at other positions, but also for the most part, the mid range guys aren't that good here. Like on previous slates, you've had, you know, Drew Holiday at 7,800 without Giannis, where you can get 55 fantasy points for $7,800. Now he's like 9,400. You have Middleton priced up to 8,300. So it's more of a slate where I think paying down at you know, a lot of spots for value and then taking the raw points from Jokic, who projects as the top scorer on the slate by more than 10 points, makes a lot of sense to me, especially right now his projected ownership isn't that high based on chat. It seems like people aren't really in a hurry to play him either. So I think he looks great. Like I'll take my 60 plus points and figure out the rest elsewhere.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting that people are like off Jokic. I mean, the price is high, but like it seems like the value on today's slate is so excellent that you can get there pretty easily, especially the value is not all at center. So he does stand out as a great option to me as well.
Yeah, like the only argument I can make against him is DeMarcus Cousins, Gorgie Jang, Robin Lopez, you know, like all of those guys. But you still have to find the raw points somewhere. And, you know, Jokic's median projection is 60 plus. He can easily go for 75 tonight and just be somebody that you have to have.
For sure. As long as Gorgie Jang doesn't go for 60.
Right.
All right. So Aaron Gordon is questionable. If he does miss this game, we probably find out, or we could find out right around the lock, because this is a 8 p.m. game. So do you think that would move the needle enough to get on some other guys from Denver?
Given the context of the slate, not really. I think it would make guys like Bones Highland and potentially Zeke Naji like interesting low-owned dart throws in tournaments, but it still wouldn't make anyone compare to the value that we have from Atlanta, and to a lesser extent, Orlando and Cleveland.
Agreed. Is there anyone else in Denver you're considering today?
Not really. I mean, all of Barton, Gordon, Morris, they're sort of just guys that are there whenever Jokic is active because he just does everything.
Yeah, definitely. On the Oklahoma City side, it looks like a team that has most of their key guys. The only questionable is Trey Mann. So that does make me think that maybe this team isn't really that exciting for fantasy today. Are you seeing much of the Thunder?
This is, I think, probably the least appealing team on the slate. They are essentially fully healthy. They're expensive. I mean, you get low ownership on guys like Giddey and Dort, which is fine. I think we have them projected to go a little bit under owned, but they're still very low probability plays. So typically with guys like that, in 150 lineups, maybe I'll mix them in. They end up getting mixed in a little bit into lineups where I have a lot of chalky guys, but they're not guys that I end up getting a lot of just because they're not that likely to succeed. And you mentioned it earlier when we talked about Garland. On a slate like this, there's so many good plays that what ends up happening is ownership still concentrates pretty heavily on like the first tier of good plays. So then the second tier is still relatively low owned. The third tier is just like contrarian good plays. By the time you get down to the Josh Giddey tier where you're talking about guys with like a 5 to 6% chance of succeeding, they're just not priorities.
Kevin Love, a game time decision today. Doesn't help a ton. Yeah, I agree that Oklahoma City it's a little bit unappealing. So maybe if you want to sweat this game, you might want to do it on DFS, like bet some props or something like that. All right. Or prize picks, of course. We have a special this time of year for bowl season. Got the Army game tonight, and of course we have projections for all these bowl games, even the ones that might be a little bit more under the radar, done by Matt Gajewski. And you can get them all for 50% off each game with the promo code bowl season. It's $25 for the whole bowl season, as you might expect. It's only valid up to today, so make sure to use that promo code bowl season. And Adam, I know you play a lot of these sports that maybe not in your wheelhouse, but just taking advantage of the tools on the site, been able to make some good money. Have you been playing a lot of college football recently? I think I saw some screenshots from you earlier this year.
Yeah, I've been playing bowl games, but I was playing during the season. I actually meant to look earlier to see how I finished up for college football. I think I had a good year. I think I was around even, and then I got like first, second, and third in a tournament one of the last weeks.
Nice, man. Between that and NHL, you must have had a killer year.
yeah, it's been a good year in sports where I can't name 5 people.
Nice, man. So I love being a DFS player. Like obviously knowing the sport is huge, but you can get by pretty good on using just the tools. And for something like the bowl games, like not many people are going to be like grinding those, so you can get a pretty big advantage just using the tools. So I recommend it. It's nice. Slate is pretty unexciting, but there's going to be a lot of great ones, and you got to use promo code today to get in there. All right, Houston at Milwaukee. Houston's a 10.5 point dog. So there's not really too much injury news here. Porter and Green still out. People were kind of thinking Josh Christopher played himself into a starting role, but it ended up being Armani Brooks that got the start last game, coming back from injury. There's not a ton standing out to me on the Rockets side of this one. What are you seeing?
Yeah, I don't see a whole lot here either. Probably behind OKC in terms of teams that I'm really not interested in. If Christian Wood is out, then you at least get the like tantalizing Şengün piece to play 18 minutes as chalk, I guess. But if Wood is in, I don't really see a whole lot. I do think Wood on FanDuel specifically looks good. He's only 8,200, but he also has power forward and center eligibility. So he was one of the guys when I did my FanDuel tournament plays video earlier. He was in the top 5 there just because at the time he was only projected for 10% ownership. I assume it's still in that ballpark. And if he does play, you're likely to get 32 plus minutes at pretty low ownership. But just not a lot stands out here. Like in the last game, they lost about 3.5 minutes to garbage time, but there was only one player on the team that played over 30 minutes. Even if you add the 3.5 minutes to everybody, you get like 32 minutes from Wood, you get like 30 from Gordon. Armani Brooks was the only guy that exceeded 30 minutes in that game on a slate like this, where pricing is relatively expensive and they've been running a little bit flatter rotations. I think it's really tough to get to.
Yeah, I agree. Wood would be kind of the guy, but Armani Brooks, maybe a fringe play. William, thanks for the super chat. He says, just tuning in, gonna be a good night. Got the laser focus glasses on. Love the content. Appreciate you, William. Yeah, this should be a good one. Milwaukee, okay, so Giannis continues to be out and Bobby Portis is out. Dante DiVincenzo, I thought he was supposed to make his return like around now, but he's out, so I can't remember the details there. But
COVID, I think.
He did end up getting COVID. That makes sense.
Yeah, he was cleared to return from his injury and then immediately got COVID.
That's a bummer. All right. So with Giannis and Portis out, we gotta start at the center position. Cousins, he had a dud in his first game as starting center. Versus Houston, I feel like the matchup versus Christian Wood, maybe a neutral. The Cousins like plays a little bit more outside, but Wood being able to take some deep shots, I feel like that might make Cousins a little bit of a liability at defense. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know that they have a better alternative though. But I do think Cousins is a really interesting point. Josh and I went back and forth quite a bit this morning. He was limited by foul trouble in that first start 2 games ago, but he still only played like 17 minutes. Even if you account for the foul trouble, he probably was going to play like 22 minutes or so. What I thought was really, really surprising and makes me somewhat optimistic for him tonight is that then they played him on the second half of a back-to-back where they surprise rested like all of their main guys, except for basically him. And they played him like 27 minutes, and he might have played more if that game hadn't blown out. So we know he physically can at least play 27 minutes on the second end of a back-to-back. There's nothing necessarily stopping him from playing 27 or 28 minutes tonight in a really good spot against Houston at 4,400. The counterpoint, the reason why I think it's so interesting is there's also nothing guaranteeing he does. And with all of the really good centers on this slate, we've talked about potentially Jang starting. We obviously have Jokic. You have Robin Lopez, but then there's like the Robert Williams. There's guys from the Clippers and Kings game that we haven't gotten to yet. There's a lot of good center plays to where if Cousins, and this kind of goes back to a conversation they were having in chat a second ago, quote unquote returning value isn't everything. You still have to score the most points to win a tournament. On a slate like this, let's say DeMarcus Cousins goes and scores, let's call it 26 DraftKings points, right? Like that's returning value at 4,400 by most people's definition. It's also actively hurting your lineup most likely because there's so many good value plays here. So I think at his current ownership at 35%, he's really interesting because if he plays 28 minutes, you probably have to have him to win. If he plays like 22 minutes, you probably could do a lot better elsewhere. And I don't have a very good feel for where he's going to come down there.
Yeah, I think the big question from my perspective, we have Gorgie Jang, who, if he does start at center, like there aren't quite as many question marks to me as Cousins, where Cousins, it seems like the team has some alternatives that they could run with, but Gorgie Jang is just so limited that I'm kind of wondering if his minutes are a little bit more secure. Do you have any lean between those two?
I mean, I think for me, the deciding factor there is the salary. You're saving more money with Jang. Where I think it's really interesting is right now, because we updated ownership projections about 5 minutes ago. Right now we have DeMarcus Cousins at 35%. We have Jang at 40. It makes sense to me given Jang's salary. Robin Lopez is 12%. I'm a hell of a lot more confident in Robin Lopez's minutes than I am in DeMarcus Cousins. Granted, Cousins is the better fantasy producer, but I mean, there's a pretty good chance Lopez plays like 10 minutes more than Cousins does tonight.
Yeah, agreed. I think that's a astute play. And then if everyone's going to these guys, then Jokic is going to be low owned. So that's another kind of pivot you can make. So there are definitely some options. Cousins, I feel like I kept hating on him last year, and then every time I would, he'd go out and like destroy. And I have no doubt that he has that in his range of outcomes. So that's someone that you can take some shots on. Pretty scary fade. What about the rest of the Bucks?
So it looks like chat's caught up on Mamukelashvili playing 42 minutes last game. I remember they sat like half their team, so don't read into that for tonight. But as far as the rest of the Bucks go, Drew Holiday and Middleton still look pretty appealing to me. They're more expensive than they were, so it makes it more difficult to get there, but it also drives down the ownership a bit. 20% to Holiday on DraftKings, 28% to Middleton. Both of those make sense. I think Grayson Allen at 4,700 at 12% is a decent contrarian option. He's not likely to be great, but it is a matchup where he obviously can just get hot, get a lot of open threes, and have himself a game. So I like getting to Middleton, Holiday, Allen. I think mostly I just feel like the field is pretty much correct, if not a little bit high on Milwaukee here.
Fair enough. Yeah, I think that this is one of the teams that's a little bit easier to have confidence in, so it's not a huge surprise. But yeah, I think that this one's pretty interesting. All right, Clippers at Sacramento. For the Clippers, we have Reggie Jackson out for this one, as well as Luke Kennard. So that's taking about 60 minutes out of the rotation, and then Hartenstein rains out. Marcus Morris is out, so there's a lot of minutes to possibly go around here. So, are you seeing the Clippers as one of the better teams today?
Yeah, when Josh and I did the show this morning, we were kind of upset because they're in a great matchup against the Kings, but we didn't have a whole lot of plays that we liked. Now you get Luke Kennard and Reggie Jackson out. That opens up a ton of minutes here. It makes Eric Bledsoe look very good. You know, he'd been coming off the bench, but now I assume he's going to be back into the starting lineup. He's only 4,800 on DraftKings. Looks like, I think, one of the better plays on the slate. He's another reason why I wouldn't go so far as to say DeLon Wright's a lock, more so just like a really good play. Bledsoe's in that same price range as well. Terrence Mann's likely to play a bunch of minutes at 5,600. Batum and Winslow both look like reasonable values. And then the center position is one that I find really interesting. It's so hard to, like, there's so many good center options tonight that I think you see Zubats just sort of get overlooked. But he's likely to play 28 minutes or so in a really good matchup. He's currently projected for 8% ownership. You have Serge Ibaka also, who's likely to play 20 to 22 minutes. He has power forward eligibility, only projected for 5% ownership. This is a team that I think you can look to some value that, you know, maybe not quite as popular as elsewhere.
I agree. I think that the Clippers, yeah, Bledsoe's a good call. Like, he's going to see a huge minutes boost because they really don't have anyone else they played at point guard. So it's really Terrence Mann, I guess, or Brandon Boston that, or I mean, Paul George is point forward, but
Winslow can handle the ball too.
Yeah, earlier in the season, Bledsoe had been playing, you know, a lot more minutes than recently. So I feel confident that he's going to get a big minutes bump here. Man, it seems like he's not a guy that can really benefit from anything other than minutes, and the price is already there. But one of the surprising things, Paul George doesn't seem to be really popping. Maybe it's just 10.9K price tag on DraftKings. On FanDuel, 9,200, much better. But how are you stacking him up versus other good players today?
I'd be interested if his ownership were lower, but we have him projected at 22%. And like, I get it. He's shooting guard, small forward eligible. He's 10,900. So he's in that same Jason Tatum price range, but we know that George has been really good this year. He's got one of the best matchups possible against the Kings. He's like, if I'm paying down at center, if I'm not playing Cousins in a lineup, George is probably where I look to go. Just because, you know, the matchup is so good. He can easily go for 55, 60 here. But again, I just prefer getting to Jokic, especially if you're going to get a situation where Jokic is 35% and George is 22. I'll take Jokic and figure out, you know, how to get value in my lineup elsewhere.
Nice, man. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, Paul George compared to Jokic, there's no question which one's a better fantasy player. There's some big question marks on the team still for me. One is Nick Batum. Like, how many minutes is he going to play? Because he's been pretty limited. And then are there any other big men that we want to be looking at? Like Ibaka could get a big minutes bump with Hardenstein out. Do you see
Yeah, I
any
think
DFS value?
yeah, I think Ibaka is a good tournament play. He played 22 minutes last game. Zubats played 27.3. So they basically split 48 with like an extra minute or two in there. But it's a situation where Ibaka at 3,200 certainly can give you a good score in 20 to 22 minutes. But if he plays well, or if Zubats gets in foul trouble, or whatever the case may be, Ibaka is likely to look really, really good at low ownership. And then you mentioned Batum. Him and Winslow both are really interesting to me because they both came off the bench last game. Batum was ahead of Winslow in the rotation. Batum played 17 minutes. Winslow played 11. Most of that was in garbage time. But a couple of games ago, when Batum first came back, and George was still out, you had Winslow start ahead of Batum and play like 26 minutes. So somebody needs to replace Luke Kennard here. I don't really know if it's Batum. I don't know if it's Winslow. I don't know if we get the Brandon Boston spot start and they keep both of those guys off the bench. But I do feel confident that Winslow at 5%, Batum at 5%, Boston at 1%. Once the starting lineup comes out, one of these guys is way on their own.
Yeah, that's a good point. And this is an island game, so are you going to be leaving spots open for this one? Like, how are you going to handle this as far as late swap?
So I think if I had to guess at the starting lineup, I would guess Justice Winslow starts, but I think it might be a little bit better from a late swap standpoint to project Batum as the starter, at least on DraftKings, because Batum's 4,500, Winslow is 3,600. If you go that route, I think I'm still going to get to both of them, but it makes sure I get to some Batum, and then worst case, I just swap down to Winslow. Whereas if I just make Winslow the starter, I'm going to get tons of Winslow, which is, I think, fine, but I'm not going to get to any Batum. And if Batum were to start, I would certainly want to be there.
Nice. Yeah, I think that's a good plan. We want one thing, we can easily get to a few guys from this game, so it shouldn't be like too much of a headache to figure this one out.
Yeah, I don't even think I'm gonna have to like force it in. I mean, there's a bunch of guys from the Clippers I'm gonna get to. There's a bunch of guys from the Kings I'm gonna get to, so I'm not too worried about having flexibility there.
Nice. Guys, I want to mention our odd shopper tools. We have a bunch of new ones. One of my favorites is the prop party parlay. We have 5 games on tonight's NBA slate, so it's basically combining our 5 best props, one from each game. So I'm seeing a lot of good ones, like Metu would be the one from this game. The rebounds over 6.5. That's even when we project Holmes in. So if Holmes is out, then that's going to go up for sure. Jason Tatum under points, like with Jaylen Brown back, his usage is going to go way down. And Osman, like getting a big minutes bump, you might think that the rebounds over would be the one to hit, but we have the under. That's I mean, we have the minutes there. It's just his rebounding rate isn't that high. So I think that could be a pretty solid one. So that's a lot of fun. You can hit the parlay builder on Odd Shopper as well. You can select the leagues that you want to make your prop with. And we have one that's like the best one to get 10x your money. And there's some other cool options there. So make sure to check out the Odd Shopper parlays. That's definitely my favorite way to bet, because if you try to bet the straight bets and props, you're going to get limited pretty low. So get a lot more action there. All right. On the Sacramento side, we have Rashawn Holmes questionable, and De'Aaron Fox, Davion Mitchell, Terrence Davis all continue to be out. So we've been seeing Tyrese Halliburton have kind of blow up games. His price has risen to match that, and Hield finally getting minutes, but the prices in a lot of these spots have gone up. So how are you handling Sacramento?
Yeah, the prices have gone up. The ownership's come down a little bit. They were a team that I wasn't really enamored with the last couple of slates just because they were getting so much ownership, but now it has come back to earth a little bit. Tyrese Halliburton is still the one that stands out. He's getting more expensive, but he's one that you've seen really take on more production with De'Aaron Fox out, most notably in the assist department. Prior to the last 3 games, he was averaging about 12 potential assists per 36 minutes. In the last 3 games, he's averaged like 19.2 potential assists per 36 minutes. That's in addition to also seeing a little bit of a usage bump. He's averaging about 38 minutes per game. He is in just like a markedly different role than we've seen for most of the year. And so I'm still really willing to pay the increased price tag for him. On guys like Hield and Barnes, it's a little bit more difficult because in Barnes's case, he's been playing big minutes most of the year anyway. Those minutes are more secure now, but he hasn't seen a huge bump in production either. Even with this team shorthanded, he's still, like a 0.9 to 1 fantasy point per minute guy. So it makes him look okay in tournaments, but not like somebody I'm going to prioritize. And then Heald, the minutes look a lot better than they have for most of the season. That makes him, I think, still a little bit underpriced, but he's also someone where Josh and I talked about it a bit the other day. He doesn't typically do more than like one thing. Like if you go back and look at different subsets of data with guys on and off for Heald over the last couple of years, in some of them, his usage rate gets up to, like 24, 25%, but his assist percentage just like becomes non-existent. In other ones, his assist percentage looks good, but then his usage rate's like 20%. You like can't find a set of data where Heald is shooting a lot and getting peripherals. So it still makes him, I think, a risky option, but probably a little bit underpriced still, just given the number of minutes he's likely to play. Metu at 5,800. He has been consistently playing a lot of minutes. You still have most of the front court guys that would affect him out. I don't think Holmes coming back has an impact there because you've been getting basically 48 minutes from Tristan Thompson and Damian Jones. Assuming Holmes plays tonight, I think you get 48 minutes from either 2 or 3 of those guys. I don't think it affects Metu. I think you still get 32 to 36 from him, which makes him look decent.
Nice. We do have a super chat from Caleb. Thanks for the super chat. He says, playing the 3-game late slate, do you feel the same way about Jokic without the value from the Atlanta game? So I think a big part of the thesis of playing Jokic is the value, but you still have some decent value in the late slate, and it's not like he's a bad value either. So I think he's probably the go-to option on the late slate. What do you think?
Yeah, that's how I see it as well. Because, like you said, you don't have all the you don't have all the Atlanta value, but you still have the Clippers game. You still have, especially if you're talking DraftKings, you have DeMarcus Cousins' value. I think he's in those last 3 games. Yeah, he is. So there's still value to be had, but also the raw points almost in a way like become more important because there's less options to make up those raw points. You're like out of the 5 games on the full slate, there's a decent chance that, one of these guys ends up having a monster game. And like, if they score 55 or 60 and Jokic scores 65, you're in trouble. Those chances are just lower when there's only 3 games worth of guys that, somebody else is going to be remotely close to Jokic.
Yeah, definitely. So I think how Jokic does is going to be huge as far as what the optimal is going to look like. And that's especially true on the late slate. So there's definitely, Cousins is okay, but that's not enough to really pull me off that. All right. Yeah, as far as Sacramento, it seems like with Fox out, there's a big lack in ball handling. So I'm looking at the guys that are really going to benefit from that, which would be Halliburton and Heald, I think, or Barnes. He scores a little bit unassisted. If you go to NBA.com, you can actually like kind of see the number of buckets everyone scores unassisted. But okay, so Harrison Barnes, his unassisted usage is 6%. Halliburton's is 10%, and Buddy Hield is 7%. So that kind of helps you figure out what's going on the Kings, where Halliburton by far getting the biggest bump in usage from Fox being out, getting the assist bump. But the price has gone up enough to account for that. Overall, a pretty fun slate. We got some really standout values, some good studs. Any final thoughts?
We just got Bogdan Bogdanovic is available to play. That gives us, it confirms another good value piece from Atlanta. Someone did mention that we didn't really talk about Reddish in that game. Reddish looks great at 3,700 or 4,500 on FanDuel. Should play a ton of minutes. And then also someone in chat had just said, if Gorgui Dieng does not start, would you still want to play him? For me, I'd be extremely cautious if he's not in the starting lineup because I fully expect Okongwu to play 16 to 18 minutes. So it just makes it so it's pretty difficult. It would suggest that it would signal Atlanta's not prioritizing Gorgui Dieng's minutes if he doesn't start.
Definitely. That's a good call. Yeah, I think Reddish is a really good play. The only thing is there's a lot of good plays. I'd say Reddish is one of the best though. So I'm kind of tempted, like I usually limit it to 3 players from one team, but you have Wright, Reddish, and Dieng that all look like they're 10 points above value. So I'm like, is it worth getting 4 Hawks here? You don't need like crazy outlier performances to get in the winning lineup.
And that's without considering John Collins. Like those guys could all do well, and John Collins can still pretty easily get to 45 on the back of rebounds and a decent scoring game.
Yeah, definitely. So that one will be interesting. maybe to stack up. All right, guys, so we got a full hour coming up here with Live Before Lock with Greg and Eric. So make sure to stay tuned. Before you do, if you can hit the like and subscribe, that'll keep you updated to all our shows that are going live on YouTube. And if you hit that notification bell, that will give you a little notification to show when we're going live. So that'll help you keep up to date. All right, guys, good luck tonight. Thanks, Prize Picks, for sponsoring the show, and stay tuned for the next hour of content.
Fire. It's a fire song.
It is time for another edition of the Awesemo NBA Live Before Lock show, where we have everything except for good lighting for our producers, Greg Aaron here. Greg Aaron, which how ridiculous is it? Like we can't get just Tyler and Jordan both live in the darkness like they're Batman or Bane or something. It's the most ridiculous thing. Both of me can't see them during the shows. This is an interesting show, though. Beyond that, we've got tons of just crazy injury report stuff. And you'd think at some point it's going to level off, but it just continues to build. It gets crazier and crazier as we go. Show is sponsored by Prize Picks. Guys, do us a favor if you're just joining now. Like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Even if you guys have been watching, do it anyway. Eric, how you feeling about today's slate with all these ongoings?
I feel okay, actually. I feel better than most slates we've had here. I mean, normally this is now the portion where like that Malcolm Brogdon just gets scratched in the middle of the show or something weird happens. I mean, we're basically just waiting for Kevin Love news. We're hoping nothing meteoric happens other than that, nothing catastrophic. That would be helpful. But for the most part, I think we kind of know what we're dealing with. There's some guys that are active that it's just unbelievable to see some of the names that are in the NBA now. Pretty excited to see Joe Johnson play actual meaningful non 3-on-3 basketball tonight.
Which 10-day contract today are you most excited to see play?
Oh, I was going to be so excited about Nick Stauskas because, like, I had an irrational love. He won me a bet back in his Michigan days that it's still like so vivid. It was like some 6-7 team parlay that I never should have bet in the first place that Nick Stauskas was the savior of. But it's got to be Joe Johnson. I mean, he's got to be the guy.
Well, Stauskas also isn't playing today because his
I know
game
that's
has
what I
been,
said. That game got
postponed.
canceled. That was sad.
So yeah, but I guess Lance. I've never been a big fan of Lance Stevenson. I don't think he was a particularly great NBA player. I know a lot of people love him. Like his last good NBA season was like 8 years ago. So I'm gonna go with somebody really random, not somebody I'm actually playing in DFS today, but DJ Wilson. There were some really good DJ Wilson slates back in the day, so that's what I'm excited for.
Great hair.
Let's hit on some of the players we're still waiting on news for. You mentioned Kevin Love being questionable, actually massive for this slate for me and should be for you guys as well. The Cleveland Cavaliers really shorthanded. I think Kevin Love is going to have to play a big role today. If he's out, then who knows what the hell happens in the Cleveland Cavaliers front court. Kevin Love is a big one. Rashawn Holmes is questionable. It appears he's trending towards playing though, so no massive concerns for me there. They've got Aaron Gordon questionable, JaMychal Green questionable. Given how much value there is on this slate, I don't even know those guys are going to matter because Aaron Gordon, JaMychal Green, you take those guys out. Does it create extra value on Denver? Sure, but not as good a value as we've seen in other spots. Do you think that's injury news that's really going to change anything for you?
No, it's not. And we had talked a little bit before the show where it's like, other than Jokic, that whole Denver OKC game, like I just feel it's going to triple overtime because I literally have 0% other than like 1% Will Barton. I think on FanDuel, he's a little bit more in play. You know, I have a handful of lineups over there, but primarily playing on DK and primarily focused on our sponsor Prize Picks. So I'm looking at those kind of as just kind of a game that we're writing off here in this early window. And, you know, it's such is life. You know, if it burns you, it burns you. I think I'll live with the result of it. But like, yeah, you can get to a ceiling of a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, but like 9,500, there's some ridiculous extreme prices over on DK. So for me, it's Starsy and Scrubsy, and it's pretty clear cut which studs you're going to be going to.
Jokic, that would be the one for sure. That would be the one. And it doesn't even matter that he's expensive. There's unlimited value here today. It's really just raw points that are going to matter at the end of the day. So to me, I look at Jokic. Sure, he's 12-6 on DK. He could score 55 fantasy points and land in the optimal lineup today if a lot of these cheap players go off, which we're going to start talking about now. And starting with some of the guard plays here, the Atlanta Hawks have to be pivotal to us. And which guys is it ultimately going to be that play a lot of minutes? I don't know, but here are all the players that are out for Atlanta. Trae Young, Danilo Gallinari, Clint Capella, Timothy Luwawu-Cabarrot, DeAndre Hunter, Solomon Hill, Lou Williams, Kevin Huerter, the most recent player ruled out due to COVID. As a result, there is just all of the minutes, all the usage in the world available for the Atlanta Hawks. Which of the guards are you focusing on the most here?
So Bogdan Bogdanovic got ruled in later here, 4,700 for him. I don't know where contextually he will be, how much people are going to react to that. I mean, for me, the number one guy is Delon Wright. Like, I don't know, 4,600 for him. It's just way too cheap for a guy who should play a ton of minutes. Cam Reddish, you know, as good as he can be from time to time, a better fantasy point per minute performer, but just slightly, both 0.82. I mean, we kind of have to throw some of that out the window because outside of John Collins, none of them are going to be particularly good. Gorgui Dieng, 1.05 over the last calendar year. Back in his Minnesota days, Spurs days, we've seen him spike some upside as long as he gets run. But for me, Delon Wright would probably be one. I think Bogdanovic becomes two simply because I know he'll be starting there. I don't know how much people are going to be reacting to him being in. Can definitely be a volume scorer for him there. And then probably Cam Reddish third. And, you know, partially Cam Reddish is cheaper and he's going to be a little bit more popular according to our ownership projections right now. So for tournament purposes, Wright is just clear cut for me. Bogdanovic, Reddish. How about you?
You know, it's tricky. The Bogdanovic one, Bogdanovic should be the best play here, right? He's cheap. Mm-hmm. He was, and as for the injury report, I mean, he was on the injury report. He was listed as probable. So I always expected him to play, but we don't have any kind of update on how much he's going to play. He hasn't played in nearly a month. He's been dealing with an ankle injury. So now you get to the situation where, all right, Bogdanovic is playing. Is the upside there? Absolutely. But what's the floor for him? I don't know because I just don't know how many minutes he's going to play. He's actually my favorite tournament play of the bunch. For cash games, though, I'd be really cautious just because we don't know what kind of minutes workload he's going to get. I'm hoping that we see some kind of tweet come in, that we've got something that News God posts in Discord chat about a specific minutes limit, because I just don't know. There's such a wide range of outcomes. I gave him 28 minutes. I don't think that's accurate, though. I think he's going to play either well above or well below that. Do you have any good feel for what you're expecting playing time out of him?
Again, he hasn't played since the 27th of November. So we do have to look at it. It was an ankle injury. I'm assuming for the most part for a team like this that, obviously they're shorthanded in a lot of ways. It's like, yeah, hey, can you suit up? Can you give us something here? So as you said, it could be a really low end, but for tournaments, that makes it really, really appealing. That's why I clarified that way. So again, right, clear cut for me, number one. But for tournaments, I'm just getting him a little bit more than a Cam Reddish, purely because I got to find ways to kind of avoid everything that the field's doing. I'm happy to get to 4 Hawks in lineups here today. No problem going that direction. But I'm the most secure of the minutes for Delon Wright. And then the other two fall a little ways behind.
Yeah. And by the way, if you look at our ownership projections, which are free to use today over on awesemo.com, it is just filled with players from the Atlanta Hawks. The most popular projected player on DK is Cam Reddish, the second most popular player, Delon Wright, the fourth most popular player, John Collins. Then you scroll down and still Gorgui Dieng is picking up ownership today. Bogdanovich is picking up 23%. Going over to FanDuel, the most popular player on the FanDuel slate, it is Delon Wright. John Collins is third. We've got Cam Reddish up there as well. Cam Reddish project for over 30%. It's going to be a very chalky Atlanta Hawks team. Unavoidable, though, in my opinion. There are so many. It's just so many players that are out for this team. And realistically, I think a lot of these guys should be like 50 to 60% owned because they're going to score. They're not going to actually, I was going to say they're not going to lose this game by a ton, but no, they're actually favored pretty significantly because the Magic are just as shorthanded. So on both sides of this game, people are going to score the basketball.
I was very intrigued to kind of get your take on that because, again, that line has not moved like the entire day up until this point. Like it's now 7.5. It's actually gone back up a half point here. I find that to be ridiculous. I mean, that just speaks a little bit more to the quality of basketball on the other side than it does the absence of basketball on the others for Atlanta here. But no way around it. It's the most important game on this slate. Normally, I'm going to preach late swap, and I'm going to preach a little bit about the Clippers, and we'll get to a little bit more of that, I think, at the forward position, just because of who that fifth starter could be here. Guys, whoever's going to be playing the 3, the 4, we'll be having some interesting talking points there, but for the most part at guard, it is so clear cut that you need to have a lot of Hawks.
Well, we could talk about some of the Clippers right now because you know who I like a little bit today. It's been a minute since we've dusted this guy
I knew
off.
It was happening. It's Eric Bledsoe day.
I mean, just look at all the guys that are out for the Los Angeles Clippers right now, and I think there's opportunity for him. He's not my favorite value play on the slate or anything like that, but we've got him 5,400 on FanDuel. That might be a little bit much for me, but on DK, where he's 4,800 and picking up ownership in the 20% range, I like getting slightly overweight to the field here on Eric Bledsoe. From a real life perspective, has he been good this year? No, not really. Actually, he's been fairly terrible. But we've seen him produce fantasy points when he's been given opportunity. And once again, like most teams, the Clippers are fairly decimated right now. They do have Paul George back, but Marcus Morris, Reggie Jackson, they're both in the COVID protocol. Isaiah Hartenstein, he is injured. Luke Kennard, he is injured. We've seen the Clippers play some bigger lineups as of late as they've gone to more of Hartenstein. But with him out, I think there's more opportunity for small lineups, which could be more playing time for guys like Eric Bledsoe and Terrence Mann. So I do like getting to Bledsoe today. Will you talk me off the ledge at all and cue everybody telling me that Eric Bledsoe is terrible, just like Evan Fournier is?
Say it ain't Bledsoe. I mean, I'm right there with you. Sadly enough, I have to roster some of this idiot. It sucks, but what else are you going to do? I mean, that's what it comes down to with some of these shorthanded situations. Like you can throw a lot of things out the window when you project somebody for 30 plus minutes. There's nobody else there that's going to be handling the ball as much. It's going to be him and Paul George handling the basketball. Terrence Mann can do it. Hasn't been very serviceable doing it here for the Clippers this season. 0.85 DraftKings points per minute for Bledsoe. Again, 33, 34, 35 minutes that you're looking for his outlook here in this spot, so long as the game stays competitive. You're getting Sacramento on the other side, which just kind of increases your interest. It's really hard to look at Eric Bledsoe as anything other than a good play. And again, you can say he's at the exact same price as Delon Wright. He's at the exact same price as Bogdanovich. So can you look at kind of finding pivots and talk to him as that? Sure. But like, you should be playing a lot of all of these guys. They just project out too well. They're too secure for minutes, too secure of a role. No way around it. I'm going to have a bunch of him too. And I actually, you said you're just a little bit over. I mean, I'm nearing 45% of this dude, so I'm almost double the field on him. And I really do not like Eric Bledsoe. So real life basketball, let's just throw that out the window.
So apparently you like Eric Bledsoe more than me. I was talking about Eric Bledsoe was going to be the first player in NBA history to be nominated into the Hall of Fame while he was still playing. So look, you're going above and beyond with your love for.
You're a sicko. Well, here's the thing: it's like you put him together, and I'm going to try to be a little bit lower on Cam Reddish. Like, it's hard because we're projecting him for 36 minutes, and he's going to be the most popular play here on the slate because of his price point. But I think finding combinations, part of why I think he's so popular is he's shooting guard and small forward eligible. And when you have that kind of a combination, there's 5 spots that you can appear in DraftKings lineups. So inherently, your ownership goes up. I think if I can find other players at the position that have comparable upside, again, he's the one who's going to project out phenomenally well, and you have multi-positional eligibility for him. But I think there's a number of ways to go at some of these positions that we can find some interest in other places to try to get a little bit different with our rosters. And, that's one major piece that if I'm different there, I'm different than half the field. So I'm trying to find ways to lower it. I'm not saying I'm going to have none, but you can't really be at the field on all of these popular guys. You're going to have the exact same lineup combination. So not saying that I want to take some massive stand, but I think Cam Reddish, more so for tournament purposes, I want to be a little bit lower on.
So you're talking about trying to be lower on some of these guys. And are there any in particular guards that you do think are picking up too much ownership? And I'll just say right off the bat, for me, it's Tyrese Halliburton, who has been absolutely spectacular as of late. But he's 8,200 on DK. He's projected for 30% ownership. Over on FanDuel, he's 8,100, projected for nearly 40% ownership. That's a little bit too much of Tyrese Halliburton for me. And I project him to be, okay points per dollar, but I just don't know that at a price tag over 8,000, he warrants that much ownership. Is he somebody that you could potentially see yourself getting underweight to differentiate your lineups a little bit?
I'm probably the wrong guy because I'm obsessed with him. Tyrese Halliburton, I thought, was the guy that was the most undervalued guy in the draft class. Iowa State homer. So yeah, I saw him play. It was more of the before and after. Halliburton got hurt halfway through the season for Iowa State, and they just looked like two completely different basketball teams in college. And it's like, well, yeah, he probably matters a little bit in the real life game here. He's really showing what he's worth here of late. I'm going to be a little bit over the field, I think, still on that number. I just think that there's enough value in other places. I can kind of mix and match. And, I've talked about trying to find paths to get off of, some of these lower, cheaper guys. I got to spend my money somewhere. And for me, Jokic and Halliburton seem like really good targets to be doing that here on this slate. I could understand. You could definitely make the case that maybe he just is going to underperform compared to his last 2 games. But, we're looking at 41 minutes there against Golden State, and that's in a blowout. Like, they were getting knocked out of that one pretty early. They're giving him full reign, full minutes here. So I still think he's a little bit underpriced here at 8,200. And you're talking about raw points that he's presenting here. We haven't projected for a hair over 41. I have him for just short of 44. So, like, for me, Tyrese Halliburton, a really, really nice piece to still get to at 8,200.
Yeah, I have him for about 38 fantasy points, which is that going to kill you at 8,000? No, but there's other guys for me personally I'd rather get to. And I look at some of the pay up options on this slate. Jokic, whatever, we don't need to discuss him anymore. But other players, Jason Tatum, I prefer spending up for today. Paul George, I prefer spending up for compared to Tyrese Halliburton. And I just don't find the pricing to be all that problematic. I want to ask you, other guards today, is there anybody that's low owned that you're getting to at the position? It is really difficult to find guys that are, like true contrarian options that you could feel really good about.
Well, Paul George is 21%. And again, I'm talking about Halliburton. I'm just talking raw points here. And shooting guard, small forward eligibility, you can once again play him at 5 spots over on DK. Is he an overpay at 10-9? Absolutely. But I would rather go to Paul George than I would rather go to Jason Tatum at a similar price point. I think that he really stands out as a guy just from a raw points perspective. It is Jokic by a landslide and then Paul George. If those are going to be my 2 highest projected guys on a slate with so much value, I have to be getting well over that 21%. I think it just makes sense to me to be getting raw points in on this slate and finding paths for it. Jason Tatum with Jaylen Brown at 11-1, that is just such a crazy tag to be looking at. He's already garnering about the same attention. But with all these other guys out, I mean, Paul George is going to go out and play some really meaningful minutes. He only played 30 against the Spurs, but part of that is they got blown out of the water. So for me, I see a large minutes upside for Paul George here. We have him projected right now for 35 and a half minutes. He could play upwards of 38, 39, so long as this game's competitive. He's probably my favorite guy under 25% to be getting over the field on the entire slate.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned in terms of pay-up options, there's just other guys I like more than Tyrese Halliburton, and Paul George certainly one of them. Jason Tatum being another, and there's so much there's so much value at the guard position that I just find it more, for me at least, I think it's a little more sensible to spend up at some of those forward positions with guys like Tatum and Paul George. We do have a super chat here from Cheyenne DeWald, who's saying, is Okongwu a better play than Zhang? So I understand why you would look at this and say like, oh, look at Okongwu. We would think coming into the season higher in the rotation than Gorgui Dieng. The problem is that Okongwu's been hurt, hasn't played that much this year. He's on a minutes restriction. So I do not view him as a viable option today. But do you think of him at all as a potential pivot off of Gorgui Dieng?
I don't know, but I'm really excited to talk about the Cavs starting lineup. I do not see Okongwu, and I am praying to God. The number one prop that I'm going to be talking about on Prize Picks, and I'm going to throw it out here now so that people have the 41 minutes to go play over there and take advantage of it. 9.5 points and 21 fantasy points for Okongwu over there. Short, both of them. He played 14 minutes. He's on a massive minutes restriction here. And as long as that continues here, again, he looked really, really nice in that Denver game there in limited time. 17% usage. He was 4 for 4 from the field to get to his 10 points. He was in foul trouble. He had 5 fouls, but I don't think he was going to play more than 14, 15, 16 minutes anyway. I don't think that there's any ceiling limit above 20. Like there's just none. And at 3,400, there are too many centers. There are too many great plays to be looking at that I don't think that there is any point whatsoever. Like Okongwu is not even in my player pool.
No, me either. It's hard to consider anybody who's restricted an option today. And let's now talk about the Cleveland Cavaliers lineup that has that just has the chat just going crazy right now because the Cleveland Cavaliers starting line. By the way, I looked to see if this had any implications on Kevin Love because I assumed Kevin Love was going to be starting. No updates yet on him. He's still officially listed as questionable. Darius Garland, Ricky Rubio, Dean Wade, Lauri Markkanen, and the man himself, Taco Fall. Thoughts?
Fuck. Like, what? Like, what are we doing? Like, what? It's so ridiculous. So I'm not going to play Taco Fall. I'm just going to throw that out there. I know everybody wants to play Taco Fall or have like some kind of a discussion. What could you possibly see this guy's minutes being? Like, what could you possibly expect? He played 23 minutes against Indiana. He's not particularly effective. Like by center standards, yeah, it's a limited sample, but like he's sub 0.7 fantasy points per minute. Like that's absurd. 0.62, in fact. Like we're talking about somebody that would have to play upwards of 25, 30 minutes to be viable here on this slate. I just don't think there's any chance whatsoever.
It's a revenge game, Eric.
Oh my God, please don't.
Eric, it's a revenge game for Taco Fall here. By the way,
I bet he gets a standing O starting and then comes out in like the 10-minute mark or something. Like Celtics love him. Like Boston loves Taco Fall.
I do not think he's going to play very much today. However, here's why he's significant. Less to do so with him individually, but yes. I didn't give him any minutes before this. I didn't think he was going to be in the rotation. I guess maybe that was foolish on my end, considering all the guys that were out for them. He's getting minutes now. There's no way around it. With that in mind, Cedi Osman's coming off the bench now. That's less minutes that I have to expect goes to him. Kevin Love, even if he ends up playing, I have to think he plays a few less minutes now. Lauri Markkanen, I thought he was somebody who could play 40 minutes. That's probably not going to be the case now. And the other guys off the bench, like Luke Cornett, Denzel Valentine, it's also less minutes to go to them. So Taco Fall, we're just adding another guy into the picture for the Cleveland Cavaliers that takes away from everybody else. So is there anybody you look at from Cleveland and be like, I really like this guy and I like him less now?
Well, Kevin Love. Kevin Love, I have to assume, has a lower minutes limit a lower minutes ceiling than what he had before not being in a starting lineup, regardless of what his status is going to be. Now, that might make him intriguing, but considering he's been talked about most of the day, I don't think he's going to be unowned unless we get news that he's just completely out. We'll know whether he's in or out, I would assume, before lock. So we'll kind of have that. I'd be leaning towards him not being in here at this point, but Ricky Rubio in that starting lineup is really, really intriguing to me just because he's over a fantasy point per minute guy here. And just seeing him alongside Garland, I'm running some rates here as we go. He's just been really, really good this entire season. Cleveland's a good basketball team. And I'd say his resurgence, along with adding Mobley, is a big reason why. Of course, Jared Allen has been serviceable, but guys like Lauri Markkanen haven't panned out nearly as well. Dean Wade's playing big minutes for this team now at random times, 34 and 22 now, the last two. I think Ricky Rubio's probably the guy that I saw a path for him there, but like just getting him in that starting rotation now, I think at 6,200 on DK, he probably becomes somebody that I'm going to get to a lot more than before, which kind of is the opposite for Kevin Love, whereas somebody that I thought I was going to be getting to a lot of if he was in the starting lineup and now probably might not even play.
Yeah, so that's Kevin Love's the guy who takes the biggest haircut for me. Looking at other guys, and we did get a super chat here, which I think it's a good time to bring this up. From William Fields, he said, Lauri doesn't play the 5, ? Cavs might play guys like Justin Anderson, Denzel Valentine, small ball Cleveland. Yeah, that's certainly a possibility. And, you know, we still have to account for there being some Taco Fall minutes. So I look at Lauri Markkanen as a viable option today, but he's not a high priority play for me. I thought he could have been earlier in the day.
On FanDuel, he is. He's 4,900 over there. So like, I hate my life because of how much Lauri Markkanen I'm expecting to get there as I'm rerunning everything. 6K on DK. I think he's going to still maybe be a little bit lower on than he should be, but like 4,900 starting alongside Dean Wade, low usage guy. Ricky Rubio, not a ball dominant, but like literally creator out there. Like he's basically competing with Garland for shot attempts. So like Lauri Markkanen, if you can't do it now, you just can't do it, dude. Like I don't know what else to say. 4,900 on FanDuel. I think he's just like one of the best plays on the slate.
So we currently have him projected for just 9% ownership on DraftKings. On FanDuel, although this isn't with the most recent run of ownership, but he's projected for 24% ownership. Yeah, I mean, I'll say that Markkanen certainly at 4,900 is a good points per dollar play for me, but I still have him projected for fantasy points in the mid 20s. It's not like this is somebody that I'm dying to roster today.
Yeah, I would agree. We have some other stuff. People are saying like, the losers win again. He's been super chatting us constantly. Dean Wade over Reddish. Depends on what you call over on. I mean, I don't think there's any denying that Cam Reddish is a infinitely better basketball play today or fantasy play here. $100 difference between the two. Dean Wade, 0.65 fantasy points here for a rate here on the season. Like that's nothingness, but he's going to play 32, 35 minutes. Like, we're looking at a massive amount of minutes for him. And Reddish, I don't know what it's going to look like, but if he's out on the floor, there's just nobody else that's going to be vying for shots the way that he is alongside him besides Bogdanovich. So definitely Reddish is the better play, but one's 50% owned and one's 10% owned right now.
Yeah, I have a lot. I don't think I have barely any Dean Wade. I mean, we've seen this role for Dean Wade a lot this year. He starts, he plays a lot of minutes. I don't know this actually really changes all that much for Dean Wade. Looking at his numbers so far this year, he has made now, let's see. So he has started 13 games. He's playing about 30 minutes per game in those starts, averaging 17 and a half DraftKings points. Not much movement for me.
I will say the crazy thing is 38 and 40 minutes there and 2 starts without Jared Allen there. So I think he's going to play a lot, and I would assume he's going to slot over and play the 4 a lot more, and Markkanen probably at the 5 when Taco falls off the floor. I don't expect Fall to be out there very much, and we're still waiting on official Love news, but I would be trending towards him not playing. So I think there's like legitimate 40-minute upside for him, regardless of how competitive the game is.
Let's see. If I gave him 40 minutes,
he's not going to project out that well anyway.
No, he's not. So in 40 minutes, I would have him just under 24 fantasy points.
What did he do in those 2 games here? Hang on.
He's just a shitty fantasy producer. He doesn't do much when he's out there.
He's like the Brian Edwards of, except for he scored a touchdown yesterday, so maybe a bad example, but just running wind sprints.
So I have Kevin Love right now for 24 minutes. I'm going to have to reallocate those minutes if he's getting ruled out. But right now I have him in and playing some of those minutes. Mark Baptiste has left a super chat. Can you guys talk Nwora? Jordan Nwora, I assume that he means. He says that he wants to run Nwora, but wants to know our thoughts. Don't like him today. This spot here with Milwaukee, they do have Bobby Portis, Dante DiVincenzo, Brooke Lopez, Giannis Antetokounmpo out, but Jrue Holiday is playing there. We've got Chris Middleton. DeMarcus Cousins has been starting. I just don't think there's that many minutes available for Nwora short of a blowout.
Let's go to the old popcornmachine.com here and take a look. Just because, like, legitimately, you look at his box scores the last two he's appeared, and yeah, you would look like somebody that would maybe be viable. But I think there were a number of pieces that have been out randomly here from time to time. Probably not going to be my favorite spot. Plus, compared to these Atlanta guys, I mean, there are other pieces, and Atlanta's just so decrepit that at the same price point, it is hard to not like them infinitely more.
Yeah, that's where I'm at too. So there's a lot of guys who on a normal 5-game slate, I'd be like, oh, and we just got news: Aaron Gordon, JaMychal Green, both playing. But so there's a lot of times on these 5-game slates, if anybody gets ruled out, you're searching for any value possible. That goes to crap on these slates now. And now I don't even want to play the good value plays. I want to play the great value plays. And there's so many of them on this slate. There are multiple cheap guys that project to score over 30 fantasy points today. DeMarcus Cousins, Robin Lopez, Delon Wright. It's these guys who just have really cheap salaries that should be priced like $2,000-$3,000 more expensive in these spots. So that's why Nwora to me is just too thin of a play for this kind of particular slate.
Yeah, they're not going to run an eight-man rotation like they did against Cleveland. They shouldn't get the doors blown off of them like Cleveland did to them. I don't see 42 minutes on the horizon for him once again. Like, there's just enough other factors. And again, do you want to maybe take a shot on him if you're playing 150? Go ahead and have a share or two if you really have that kind of conviction, but I'm just not seeing it.
All right, a super chat here from John Good. Do you guys like the build with two value centers, Lopez, Jang, Cousins, or Jokic in one of the three?
Dude, I'll go
both.
first. I mean, I like both builds. One quick way to do it, if you just want to, like, again, it's something that I've kind of like been contemplating, just trying to go through some of these optimals. When somebody's projected for like a 1.85 fantasy point per minute rate, and, you know, if any game stays close, Nikola Jokic, it's really hard to imagine a world where he's not going to be ending up optimal in some of these spots. Like, it's so hard, even at 12-6 on DK, less so on 11-6. Like, he's still my favorite center to play over on FanDuel. No questions asked. Gorgui Dieng close at 3,700, but I'm still going to side with the raw points simply because you have value at every other position, period. And they're not going to be able to make up the ground. Like, if Vooch was on this slate like before, maybe there could have been somebody to project out from a raw points perspective at the position that could be somewhat comparable. But like, if you just simply sort it on Cruncher right now, we have Jokic at 60. John Collins, power forward center eligible, is 38. So we're talking about 20 points that you're giving up by not playing him at the center position. I definitely like Gorgui Dieng. I definitely like shares of Robin Lopez. I definitely think that there's viability to a number of other centers that you want to take shots on, but like, he's just standing out as such a phenomenal play because of what he can do from a raw points perspective. I'm definitely going to be over on 36%.
Yeah, I am as well. And the other guys are certainly better points per dollar plays. I don't even have, it's not like I have Jokic projected to go score 70 fantasy points or something like that, but raw points matter a lot for this slate, and it's hard to find a lot of guys who want to pay up for it. It's easy to find guys who want to save money with, but in terms of paying up, the options are much thinner. So my preference is Jokic and then just mixing in the cheap guys. That's not to say I'm not going to have lineup builds with the two cheap guys also. I know this isn't going to be an answer you're thrilled with, but I think both of them are good options. If you're playing Dieng and Boogie together, if you're playing Boogie and Lopez or Dieng and Cousins together, or Jokic with any of those, like, all of them are viable and good options in my opinion. Okay. But I would say it should be those four. To me, the guys who are just centers on DK, Dieng, Cousins, Jokic, Lopez. I don't think there's anybody else I'm considering all that heavily.
I love that. Yeah. And again, mix and match them. If you're playing 150, you're playing one lineup, best of luck to you. Godspeed. Just play Jokic.
Yeah. I see it the exact same way. Anything else you want to add from the guards?
Let's see. Just kind of talking tournament perspectives. We didn't talk about Drew Holiday. I think the same raw points thing we're talking about. Middleton's back alongside of him there, but we've just seen such a boost to his productivity here. 44 minutes there against the Pelicans, sat out against Cleveland, now back here. I just think that he's somebody that I want to get to in tournaments as well, above 19%, purely because we have so much savings to have here. And we have a ton of value that we'll talk about now at forward position and so on and so forth. But one more ceiling that I want to be mixing into a bunch of my lineups.
What time of year it is, Eric?
What time of year is it, Greg?
Bowl season. It's bowl season. And bowl season is here. You guys can use the promo code Bowl Season to get full access to all of our college football DFS projections for 50% for every single game. That's $25 with the promo code Bowl Season, all caps, all one word. And this offer ends today. So the last day you could sign up using the promo code Bowl Season today. So you got 4 hours and 57 minutes left until the Bowl Season promo ends. It's a great holiday present. It's something Eric would like. It's something that your significant other would like, your friends, your wife's boyfriend, anybody. The Bowl Season package here is the perfect gift for. All right, let's head on over to the forward. Let's head on over to the forward position. And who do you want to talk about first, Eric? Chris Middleton or John Collins? Both of them excellent chalk plays.
Yeah. What do you want me to say? They're both good. You should play both.
And any kind of pushback against the chalk here. To me, I mean, Chris Middleton, his price has gone up a little bit on FanDuel DK, not enough though, without Giannis on the court. We've seen a really big price increase for Drew Holiday and not quite enough for Chris Middleton. If I have to roster one of them, I prefer Middleton to Drew Holiday. And then John Collins, he's the only good player, the only really good player that's left healthy for the Hawks. Both of them good chalk plays, in my opinion. Any pushback on that?
I will say just because he's 8,300, there's a larger bust potential with a guy like Chris Middleton than I think John Collins, who is projected to play 40 minutes here. He's over a fantasy point per minute player. He is going to be able to be on the floor as the 5, perhaps in spots where it's not Jang and not a Kong. We're probably playing the 4 the entire game, more than likely, as I'm talking about it out loud. But like, he's the guy that offensively is going to make this team go. If you look at all the Vegas props, he's around 21.5. If you're heading over to Prize Picks and seeing it, I believe it's the exact same number for pure points. John Collins, I think, is just like the focal point of this team. No questions asked, whereas Middleton is at least splitting duties with a Holiday. So just want to throw that out there.
All right. A couple super chats did and a news item. Kevin Love will play today. Kevin Love is active. Obviously not starting. It was not in the starting lineup. He's coming off the bench. How do you view him now, and how does that change your opinion potentially on Lauri Markkanen?
See, this is not fun. Like, this isn't what I signed up for today. I didn't want to do this. Like, just take a break so that I can at least play Lauri, because now 4,900 even on FanDuel, I know he's going to be more popular over there. And Kevin Love comes in and he plays meaningful minutes, over just like low 20s minutes. That's meaningful in the context of what you need out of Lauri Markkanen to be effective nowadays. I don't love it. I'm not enjoying this very much. Kevin Love, he's really, really low owned and he can go out and do ridiculous things, but now he's up to 5,700 over on DK. I think where you're playing 2 power forwards on FanDuel, even though that tag is, a little bit higher over there, I still think I would rather take my shots there. He's 1% there at 5,700, just in the context of the slate where, it's a weird kind of mid-range price to pay over on DK that I don't want to, but 5,700 on FanDuel, I might have a share or two at like 2% because of what he can do in low minutes.
All right. Another piece of news here that's going to be important. The Hawks starting lineup. It is Wright, Mays, Reddish, Collins, and Gorgie Jeng starting at center. So ruminate on that for a second, but I don't want these super chats to go stale. So we'll answer these, then we're going to hit on the Hawks starting lineup, get everything covered here. First, from the losers win again, can we talk about Hassani Gravett? Sure, he looks like Luis Pena, who fought in the UFC. He's got crazy red hair. He looks like Bob Ross a little bit. Other than that, there's better value plays today. I don't have an issue with anybody's rosters. I have like 5% of them.
Not much gravitas. Can we say that?
Yes, no? you could. That would be a clever enough play on words. I'll let it go.
Damn it.
A little bit of a stretch, but
I love you. Did you get that reference?
Nope.
Chat might. Please, chat, get this one.
Please don't. Please don't.
I have 4% of him. That's all.
Make him feel like the bumbling idiot he is. Next super chat from Benjamin Shushan. Any love for Time Lord as a center pivot? Let's
do the Time Lord again. That's back to back. How did that work? Back to back, same musical. Oh, that's incredible.
Yeah, I have no clue. I have no clue what you're talking about, but
Tyler.
Thank you. There we go, Tyler. Going to cue up the duck noises too.
Quack, quack, seat back.
There we go.
On delay.
Perfect. All right. So as for Time Lord as a center pivot, it's a no for me. It's just in no man's land, that mid-tier pricing range. You might get a really good game out of out of Time Lord. He might go out and score 40 fantasy points. I don't think that could be. I don't even think that's going to be enough on this slate, considering you have Jokic to pay up for all these great value options. So I'm not getting to Time Lord. Do you feel any differently?
Yes, I do. All right. So my big stand for the day, everybody. Hello. I am triple the field on Robert Williams on DK. I think that this is where you want to try to kind of make your stand. And this is just simply looking at him and saying, you are traditionally better than this. Like you're better than this. If you take this year out of consideration and you go back to last year, do you know what his fantasy point per minute rate was with no Al Horford in town?
Yeah, I know it was very high, but I don't think it's any different than some of the guys who are cheaper that I also think are going to play more minutes. They've not played Robert Williams big minutes this year, even with guys out. I think he's going to ultimately split the center minutes with our guy, Captain Freedom.
Captain Freedom. Yeah. Well, Captain Freedom. No, we're not going to do that today. We're going to see. So we have him for 26 minutes and he's still somebody that I want to get to a little bit. I'm looking at FanDuel specifically when I say that, by the way. I'm looking at him at 5,600, 15.8% rostership right now that we have. I've got 46%. I project him for 33 fantasy points. He's a 1.2 fantasy point per minute, 1.15 over on FanDuel from last season. So I'm just looking at that and I'm saying, you know what? I believe that you are going to be capable of getting more rebounds, in this spot than what you have been alongside Al Horford in the starting lineup. Therefore, I have to get to more of him because if you don't play him here in this spot, you're going to miss out and you're going to be sad. I think, 30 minutes upside. I'm going to sign up for some Robert Williams sub 20%.
Yeah, I agree. You're going to miss out on the better points per dollar value place. Super chat from the OG Joe P. No question.
Part two.
Just the OG Joe P left us super chat. No question there. Appreciate the super chat. If you do have a question, follow up and at me on it so that I know what the question is. Other than that, we've answered all the super chats. Let's hit on this Hawks starting lineup because this is a biggie. To reiterate, the Hawks starting lineup today. It is a weird one. The Hawks are starting Cam Reddish, Gorgui Dieng, Delon Wright, Skylar Mays alongside John Collins.
Yeah, it's weird. He's 3,500 on FanDuel. On DK, I'm assuming he's the min. I was fixing everything over there.
He is.
Like Skylar Mays, Jesus. Like why are we even here? What do you say you do here, Atlanta? The problem with Skylar Mays is that he's traditionally a good fantasy point per minute producer. I was kind of updating some rates as we're going along. Over a 0.9 fantasy point per minute guy. He had been a piece of some builds like last year in some spots. Let's go back to last year. There were a couple of spot starts or spots where he at least was in play there. 29.75 in 17 minutes. He's found ways to be effective in very, very limited minutes. I'm looking at a 27-minute, 36 fantasy point game, 21 in 23 minutes. Like traditionally a decent fantasy point per minute guy. It just comes down to what do you project those minutes to be? I have him at 20, and I'm going to probably get him into some lineups at 3K. How about you?
I don't think I'm going to. I still think the guard minutes here are going to be really split out. But Bogdanovic is in. I assume he's going to be restricted now that he's not starting.
Yes.
If he had no restrictions, he would. I think we're going to get 24 to 26 minutes out of Bogdanovic. But I still think he closes for this team. I don't think Skylar Mays does. I think Sharif Cooper plays minutes. I think guys like Jalen Johnson, Lance Stevenson, Wes Iwundu, I think all of these guys are going to play some minutes off the bench. I don't think Skylar Mays is going to play very much.
I could see it honestly going both ways, where if you're gonna limit Bogdanovic, it's just coming down to bodies here. And Skylar Mays, the more he gets more done on a floor, I would say. But yeah, Cam Reddish, again, I was talking about how I wanted to find ways. I didn't expect him to be starting. So everything I said about Cam Reddish, strike it from the record. I'm going to probably have him be one of my most owned players, period.
Hard to get away from him. FanDuel, DraftKings. I know he's going to be really popular, but he's so cheap and he's starting and everybody's out for the team. So I'm playing a whole bunch of Cam Reddish. I'm going to differentiate elsewhere. As for other starters for the Atlanta Hawks, I mentioned I'm not going to be super high on Skylar Mays. Bogdanovic, I just reran my lineups and I'm getting to less than 10% of him. I just don't think the minutes are going to be substantial enough for him for me to get to a lot of them now that he's coming off the bench. I like Delon Wright a lot. He's a chalk play that I still have to get behind. Same goes for Gorgui Dieng. Now that he's starting, he's a really good points per minute fantasy producer. He's cheap. He's going to be my most rostered center today.
More than Jokic.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to probably be just rotating around those four guys that we kind of talked about earlier. Lopez, definitely the lowest owned out of the entire grouping now, because I think he will be the most owned compared to the other ones. I would much rather play a ton of Gorgie, a ton of Jokic, about the field, or maybe a little over on Boogie, and I'll be under on Lopez.
All right. We got an ownership update from 1 minute ago.
Okay.
So now we could see what some of these most popular guys are now accounting for the recent Atlanta Hawks starting lineup. Starting with DK, the most popular play on the slate is Cam Reddish. Actually, the three most popular plays, all Atlanta Hawks: Cam Reddish, John Collins, Delon Wright. As for other center plays, Jokic is the most popular. Robin Lopez, like you said, is the second most popular. Then Gorgie Jang, then DeMarcus Cousins. All of them are popular, though. We've got Jokic at 36%, Lopez 36%, Jang 33%, Boogie at 28%. Over on FanDuel, the most popular plays, Delon Wright and John Collins at the top. Cam Reddish coming in behind them alongside Paul George and Nikola Jokic. Tyrese Halliburton still very popular, 36% projected ownership on FanDuel. On DK, Halliburton projected for 28% ownership. Nothing really there massively surprising to me. How about for you?
Not at all. I mean, this is like in lockstep for what you would expect. I still find it too low on the Hawks. I really, really do. I see no way that you don't just jam above the field on all of them. And I hate being the guy that in the early game is playing all the chalk, but I find no way around it. You just do it.
Yeah, I think that there are certain spots where I look to try to get away from the chalk. It's just not here, though. There's there's these guys that I've really kind of view as can't miss plays outside of something crazy, and Cam Reddish and Delon Wright are two of them.
Yep, I'm there with you. I see no way around it. You just play a bunch.
All right, so let's hit on the other forwards now. And we talked about we like John Collins. We like getting to Chris Middleton. Jason Tatum we talked about as a pay-up option a little bit earlier. Who at the forward spot have we not yet talked about that you do like as a play?
And that we haven't talked about here. This will be fascinating. Chuma Okeke, obviously, because of the minutes. I mean, he's playing 36 plus minutes a night here. They have nobody else really doing what he's doing here in his three starts now, 32, 39, 35 minutes. Getting a bunch of boards here too. Board rate has been up. You get Wendell Carter and Mo Bamba off the floor. That's going to happen. Robin Lopez can, obviously steal from that category, but Chuma Okeke definitely seeing the rebound spiking a little bit here too. That's a nice plus to be kind of throwing in there too. We haven't really talked about Sacramento. I find this to be really, really interesting because Sacramento has been like the value du jour. People have been getting there in a meaningful way. And now you're looking at a 6,900 Buddy Hield in the evening category here, still garnering 23%. There's no way that I'm going to get there. Like there's just way too many pieces of value earlier on at the forward position. I want to get up to Jokic for raw points. I want to play Paul George. I don't know how I land on a 6,900 Buddy Hield over on DK. How about you?
Well, yeah, Buddy Hield is one of the, and let's see, what is his ownership now at? Buddy Hield
23%.
Yeah, that's pretty egregious to me. Buddy Hield 23% on DK, 28% on FanDuel. The FanDuel price tag is more reasonable at 5,800. The DK price tag, I don't even know if I have any of Buddy Hield at this point.
I have 3%. And so like for me, that just comes down to like, it's a recency thing. He's gone nuts the last two games. I tell you what, he was on the bust train until garbage time last time out and really salvaged an outing in the second half, but particularly in the fourth quarter. But I am not going to be getting to Buddy Hield even remotely close to 20%. So if you want to be talking about fading, that guy with all the other pieces, I mean, I'm just going to be playing way more Cam Reddish, John Collins, all these guys at forward. And sure, you can play him shooting guard, small forward here. He fits into 5 places. Maybe that's why he's getting even up to 23%. I'm just going to be shorting it completely. Chimezie Metu, another guy I'm not even going to get close to here. I mean, do we get official word on what's happening here with Richaun Holmes yet? Because Richaun Holmes, I had in and expected to play.
The last we heard was earlier in the day from, I believe, Doug Christie, who's the interim head coach. He said that Richaun Holmes is trending towards playing.
Yeah, so Chimezie Metu, another guy, 5,800. He's coming in around 20%. I'm just not even getting close to it. And sure, you'll have somebody there in that Clippers spot. But like for me, the value is so extreme. I don't want to be giving up a ton of lineups to the evening window to chalky Sacramento players. I just don't.
I don't mind Metu. I have him in my player pool. I'm not massively different on him than the field is. And I still think we're going to see a lot of Metu minutes alongside Richaun Holmes. I don't think this means that Metu plays less. I think it means that guys like like Jones and Tristan Thompson play less, not necessarily Metu.
Okay. Hey, Metu, it's more of just like limitations. Tristan Thompson, probably the guy who takes the backseat. Another guy to go short over on Prize Picks if I had to throw it out there.
And Prize Picks, the sponsor of today's show, if you guys go and sign up there using the promo code AWESEMO, you get up to a $100 bonus on your first deposit. Also, if you're new to Prize Picks, you sign up right now using our promo code, you get 1 free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. You use all our projections to go check out Prize Picks and find some of the best overall points, fantasy point plays to go over or underweight on relative to their projection over on Prize Picks. Also, for free, you guys can use OddsShopper. Check out oddshopper.awesemo.com. And you just look at some of the prop projections we have for players, compare those to some of the numbers that we have at Prize Picks. Really good way to find some value there. But the best value, still signing up using that promo code AWESEMO and getting up to $100 on your first deposit as a bonus. Now, also, Eric and I, the slate might lock in 11 minutes, but we're going to be sticking around for another 30 minutes after that to talk about Prize Picks and anything else that might happen on this NBA slate. And given the current state of things, Eric, think there's a chance that other things might happen?
I'd probably say yeah.
It's a possibility. It's a possibility.
Strong likelihood.
Tyler won't see it coming because he's sitting in the dark, but there's things that are going to happen without too much of a doubt. Starting lineup for the Boston Celtics, because people wanted us to, or at least mention this. Okay. Romeo Langford starting, Dennis Schroeder coming off the bench. Doesn't really do anything for me. One thing maybe is you can make a case there's going to be more usage available for Jason Tatum. We've both talked about him as a viable pay-up option today. And if you're putting Dennis Schroeder out of the starting lineup, Romeo Langford in, opens up a little bit more usage for Tatum, but no real massive changes for me.
No changes for me either. Not a single way in hell that I'm going to play Romeo Langford on the slate.
All right. Forward position. Anything else we've missed? If not, we could talk about the centers that we've already talked about.
What are you doing? So, I mean, Jaylen Brown, I think, is a nice talking point over on FanDuel. He's 7,500. And, where you're not looking to just completely go stars and scrub is when somebody can project out for as many raw points. How much are you projecting Jaylen Brown for over on FanDuel today?
Let's see. I have him for about 35 fantasy points. I think he's he's somebody to be about even with the field on.
Okay. That for me, that's kind of the one guy from Boston here. Obviously, Jason Tatum has the ceiling, but he's 31% over on FanDuel. And I'm finding myself gravitating more towards Jaylen Brown for 2,400 less. Again, the ceiling is definitely there for Jason Tatum. He's projected for 8 points higher. We have him in right now on FanDuel, but like Jaylen Brown, somebody that I just can't get to remotely over on DK at his tag. It's probably one of the more egregious ones at 9,900. But on FanDuel, I mean, that's just a drastically different play.
Yeah, I worry a little bit about his minutes upside. They've been pretty consistently keeping him like that 32 to 33 range. I think they're a little afraid of him aggravating the hamstring injury. Mm-hmm. Maybe I should be a little bit higher on him just from the standpoint of everybody's out for Cleveland and they're starting Taco Fall at center, which is a likely disaster for from the center standpoint. So I think actually based on that, maybe I should be getting a little bit higher on Tatum and Brown just because of everybody's out for Cleveland.
What? Eric Costa, so much Kaya Spags ripped the cast he hated. What? That makes no sense. I don't even know what it is. I don't even know what it is that you're reading right now. Oh, I was just reading chat, something from, and 720 Red Dog. He's been in there once in a while here.
Yeah, he doesn't like it. I don't think he watches the shows. I don't know if he likes us very much, but yeah,
that's what it is.
He is around. We have a question here from
Speaking in riddles, that one.
Speaks Cote in our Discord chat. Up to how many Hawks would you guys play in a single DK GPP lineup?
I will tell you if I have any 5. I know I have 4. I'm just finishing my run here with Skylar Mays, which, by the way, I thought I was going to get 0. I'm getting to a little bit. So there you go. I'm getting a lot of Skylar Mays.
Interesting. Did you give him
5%?
Did you give him a lot of minutes?
Yeah, I did. I give him 24.
Even if I gave him 24, I wouldn't be getting to him that much. I didn't give him 24 minutes, though.
I'm getting 55% of Skylar Mays. I'm going to have to cap him because he's 3K. That's the other part of it. It's like he's 3K starting. They've obviously, picked up some guys to try to infuse in for some minutes, but like Skylar Mays has been there. So there's that. Like Skylar Mays is actually a piece of this basketball team that, was there last year coming into this year. So I think the minute ceiling is maybe a little bit higher than you do, especially if Bogdanovich is limited.
Yeah, I didn't even give him 20 minutes. I have, because I had to give minutes to these other guys. I gave Mays minutes. I gave Sharif Cooper minutes. I gave Jalen Johnson minutes in the front court. I gave Lance Stevenson minutes. I gave Wes Iwundu minutes. I think they're going to run a lot of crappy players for like 20-ish minutes.
That would really suck for me because I'm going to play Skylar Mays more than the field. I know that.
Yeah. Well, let's see. What do we have? By the way, just to reiterate, ownership projections free today. And Skylar Mays, his most recent 17% right now on DK.
Interesting.
And on FanDuel, he is projected for 11% ownership at 3,500.
So people are actually getting there. That's
yeah.
surprising. Okay. Well, there we go. That helps a little bit. So I can cap him at 25 and just move on with my life. Cause otherwise I just don't really have the time or patience to kind of tweak with it too much here. But Skylar Mays, again, 0.93 DraftKings points per minute over the course of his career here. And I'm just plugging him in again. 18 and a half is the minutes we have on him. So maybe I was a little bit high on that, but even if I put him in for 20, which I think is more of a realistic outcome. I mean, you're just basically saying fantasy point per minute or, 18, 20 fantasy points there. Upside of more here, going to be the lowest owned out of all the Hawks, I would assume, in that starting lineup. Or would you agree with that?
I don't know what to expect from the Hawks. I like Delon Wright. I like Gorgie Jang. I like Cam Reddish. I like John Collins. To me, everybody else is a dart throw.
Yeah, that's probably true. Oh, baby. Yeah, it's by 4 of my 5 highest owned players are Hawks. So what a lovely day to be playing DFS in the world.
Yeah, it's all these situations where you're just getting these 10-day contract guys, role players who don't normally play minutes all of a sudden starting. It definitely creates for weird situations. I think the minutes are going to be spread out. I don't have a lot of conviction. That's just my gut feeling. That's how I've set everything up. Some super chats here to get caught up on. James Hay, thoughts on Christian Wood?
Play him on FanDuel, not on DK. How about that? 8,200, a little bit different going over where he's power forward center. You just have such an opportunity cost at center. You can only play 2 over on DK and he's center only. Play him on FanDuel if you're going to get any exposure.
By the way, our guy 720 Red Dog, he's now saying that I'm a DFS legend. So he's trying to get in my good graces. And let me tell you something, my friend. It has worked. 720 Red Dog, welcome to the team, and screw that Eric Lindquist guy. So
yeah, well, he was saying Rip. I was seeing Rip Puppet Lindquist. I'm Puppet Lindquist. I'm doing the Specs thing. Watch me do the Specs thing. It's like Mickey Mouse, but it's not Mickey Mouse. It's making fun of Eric.
Well, that's what you sound like. So it's a totally reasonable and expected. So it's exactly what you sound like.
I love
Ricky Rubio or Darius Garland on FanDuel.
So they're $400 away. And I like Ricky Rubio a lot, but that's not enough of a difference. If you're chalky elsewhere, I mean, that $400 should be able to go to work on something else for you. But in the event that it isn't, Darius Garland.
Yeah, it is Garland for me on DraftKings. They're just priced totally differently. And I know that's not what he asked about, but Garland is 9,700 on DK. Maybe an indication that he's underpriced on FanDuel when he is all the way up to 97 on DK. On FanDuel, we got Garland at 7,200. But FanDuel, the answer for me is Garland. Other super chats here to get to. We got to that one. JR, do you like Okiki as a cash play on FanDuel?
I don't know if I would be going to cash. I mean, it's
no
John Collins is a lock. So John Collins is a lock. It would be Markkanen or Okiki maybe, but Jason Tatum, you should have the money to get to with Wright, with Mays, with whomever else. You're going to be playing at those bottom spots. I will say Skylar Mays is 3,500 over there on FanDuel, even at 20 minutes. Maybe not cash. That's going too far, but you're going to have Rubio or Garland or whatever else. So many Cleveland pieces, so many underpriced pieces. You probably don't need to go Okiki, but if you landed on that, whatever, it's probably okay.
You're playing Tatum and Collins, most likely a power forward on FanDuel. The way that Tatum also has small forward eligibility. So maybe Markkanen would be the other consideration. The answer on Okiki, short answer is no.
Okay.
Yeah. Not for cash anyway.
Yeah, probably not. I mean, I'm just assuming John Collins lock, Jason Tatum should be able to fit in that lineup lock. You should be able to do that pretty simply.
So let's get to the centers now, and we've kind of already exhausted it. That's why I didn't really spend that much time here. Gorgie Jang, Nikola Jokic, DeMarcus Cousins, Robin Lopez. That's really my center pool over on DK. FanDuel, I know you had Robert Williams in the mix, but he also has power forward eligibility on FanDuel, so it is a different situation. I was kind of breaking your balls about it a little bit before. For DK, okay. for DK though, I wouldn't be considering Robert Williams.
It's not that Again, I would have like a couple. It's in 150. Like I'm getting to 3% of him, so I'm even below that 4.5%. Strictly talking FanDuel, where he can do something to that price tag. It's really, really hard. 5,500 on DK with centers that are projecting out much better below him, and obviously Jokic.
By the way, we've got Alex Baker. Is there no update on Love? The boss man, we gave out our updates on I like to think that Alex is sitting here watching Live Before Lock and be like, oh my God, what am I going to do with Kevin Love?
He needs takes from us. That's what it is.
Yeah,
absolutely.
He needs to know what Greg and a man who might be a puppet think about Kevin Love before he makes any of his decisions to go win $1 gazillion today. Anything else at the center position that we missed you want to talk on? Or we could just say who you ended up with as your most rostered players at the center position. I think we've already hit on the guys that are important.
Let me just go through that. So center, John Collins, my highest owned, technically power forward center, getting 78% of that guy. Nikola Jokic there, 64%. Gorgie Jang, 55% for him. Cousins, 30%, 23% on Robin Lopez. So pretty much exactly what I said is what I did.
Yeah, I am Jang 1. John Collins I have less of him than Gorgie Jang, but power forward and center. If I'm just talking about the pure center guys, it is Jang 1 for me, Jokic 2, Boogie 3, Robin Lopez 4, and nobody else who is just pure center eligibility that I'm getting to at any kind of significant rate here. And here we go. We've got a good super chat from the OG Joe P. And listen, I know what's going on here, but I'm going to read it anyway. From the OG Joe P, is 45% Mike Oxsmall too much?
Wow.
I feel like that one was a little bit too shoehorned in. I know it's very much a Bart Simpson calling Mo and trying to get the phony name in there. But Mike Oxsmall, it's a little bit of a stretch for me. It's not my favorite phony name, but hey, listen. He's playing to the right crowd.
Yeah, I was going to say, if anybody was going to go waka waka, it was Greg Ehrenberg. So you had the right guy there, but luckily he's a trained professional.
All right. By the way, Christian Wood officially ruled available to play for tonight's game. Eric, you know what this brings us to? The slate may be locking. Good luck to everybody tonight, but Eric and I are not going anywhere. Next 29 minutes, Eric and I are going to be talking about Prize Picks. We're going to be looking at OddsShopper over on awesemo.com. Really useful tool that is free to use that you guys could use to find some of the best value that is available over on OddsShopper for Prize Picks. But the absolute best value you can get over on Prize Picks is you sign up right now using the promo code Awesemo. You get up to $100 bonus on your first deposit, and you get 1 free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. So you're getting a lot of value out of that first deposit. Eric, what's your preference here? You want to look at Prize Picks or do you want to look at OddsShopper?
Well, first, right off the bat, we just got word that Sandro Mamukashvili is going to be out here, which sounds stupid, but that matters quite a bit to me because I think Boogie Cousins is going to play a lot more minutes. We had him for 20, 21, and he was already projecting out well. And now if you just give him 5 minutes, 6 minutes from Sandro, that's more going towards Cousins. And now that guy who played Nwora is going to be really, really pissed off at us, or the guy who asked about Nwora, because that becomes kind of an interesting talking point. But with Thanasis there, I got to expect that, 25 minutes that he played against Cleveland, still going to be problematic to get to somebody like Nwora. But I think it just even more shores up DeMarcus Cousins minutes.
I had him out of the rotation today anyway.
Okay. I had him for
Sandro,
6. So I had him for a couple minutes.
Are you just giving those minutes right to Boogie?
I'm giving, just 1-for-1 swap in there. I mean, Thanasis can come in and do a little bit there for it, but just wanted to throw that out there because it literally just broke.
Does that move Boogie ahead of Gorgie Jang for you?
That's what I'm trying to figure out, is see if that actually matters to me. Again, we just got Orlando and Atlanta, Cleveland, and Boston just locked here. So, I mean, you're basically just looking at Jokic exposure and Denver. So, those are really the 2 center spots we still have shored up. I can't do anything about the amount of Lopez or Jang I have. So for me, it's just simply making sure that like all the bookie I have, I feel exponentially better about than before.
Yeah, and I'm curious. That is the game that I'm going to have on my second screen here. Is the oh no, it's NBA TV, so I have to. That league pass. Nothing.
This organization will not tolerate failure.
No bigger scam in the world than NBA TV not being included in part of NBA League Pass. Rockets starting lineup is Brooks, Gordon, Matthews, Tate, and Christian Wood. No surprises there. Let's head on over to Prize Picks right now. And Eric, do you have Prize Picks or Odd Chopper open right now? We'll put one of us on each of them.
I don't know, but Jordan Nwora is starting, so now we actually.
Oh my God! Now we do have to talk about it. All right, Milwaukee Bucks starting lineup.
Son of a biscuit.
All right.
I love you too, Josie N. Hello. So great to see you in these streets. Hello.
Who loves you?
Josie N loves me in YouTube chat, and I love them.
Sounds like a bot to me. All right, so this starting lineup for the Milwaukee Bucks, which I'm pulling up right now, we have. I don't see it. Was it in Discord?
Yeah, I've got it. I've got it here. I've got it. I've got it right here because you have to know where to get it. It's fine. We've got Holiday, Nwora, Connaughton, Middleton, Cousins. So Holiday, Nwora, Connaughton, Middleton, and Cousins. Crap.
So we still got Boogie starting.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about Nwora now that he's going to be in? I mean, obviously, we have to expect he plays more minutes now.
Well, yeah, he played 42 the last two in his starts. So, yeah, I like Nwora a lot more. Oh, I feel so bad. But here's the thing. You should be able to still get to some. I mean, I'm going to have some Boogie that is going to turn into some Nwora just because it has to. But he's power forward only over on DK. That makes him a little bit harder to get to. I've obviously used up a ton of power forward spots with Collins. But again, I was lower on some of the Sacramento pieces. If you were higher on them, now you can at least turn him into some Nwora. This is where late swap is just the best. And, that news comes out after lock here. I still think there's going to be enough that you can get to for Nwora. But, I mean, if you put him in, we had him at 17 minutes here at Awesemo. If you put him in for like 27, which is probably more corresponding to what we should expect here, he's going to turn out to be one of the best values you can possibly get to now.
I don't know that one of the best values is, I don't know if I'd say to that extent. He's certainly, I had none of 0% Jordan Nwora before. I'm going to have not 0% now. I'm going to be getting to him in my lineups at higher.
Thanks for the help, Greg.
Does this take away from anybody who you were getting exposure to?
Well, I mean, let's just do some on and off court here. So, I mean, he's right around a 0.85 fantasy point per minute guy traditionally here. You take Giannis off the floor and that just becomes more availability to everybody over the course of the last month or, whatever sample size you want to be using. But if you take Giannis off, it just comes down to looking at with them on the floor. Jrue Holiday, 1.33, Chris Middleton, 1.32, Cousins, 1.25 now over the course since he's showed up. Jordan Nwora above 1. So like Jordan Nwora with no Giannis is above a fantasy point per minute producer over on DK. So it just comes down to what is your minutes allocation for him. We have to look at some of these box scores from previous games here because we've had Thanasis who was out. Now he came back. So he was out for like one random game. You played on the 15th and the 18th. There was one in between. He was out for 9 days there for COVID protocols, Miami to Boston. Those were his last stints there. He had played 2 minutes in that Boston game, played 21 and 25 now in the last two that he appeared. So that's kind of an interesting deal. But with no Sandro in there, that's really kind of like the piece that I think goes underappreciated. Sandro played 42 minutes. And given they were extremely shorthanded for that game, but played 42 minutes in that blowout against Cleveland, played 18 against the Pelicans in the game before that. So that was that 17th. That's where Thanasis didn't play there. It really comes down to I don't want to play Thanasis because obviously he's not starting, but how many minutes would you project him for? Because that is going to directly affect how much Boogie and how much Nwora you get to here.
Yeah, and then also we have a question in our premium Discord channel. Nicola92 asked, how much does coming off the bench hurt Allen? A lot. It's less minutes available to him. And there's still a lot of guys to get minutes here from the Milwaukee Bucks. I think you just mentioned Thanasis is going to play minutes. Rodney Hood is going to play minutes. Wes Matthews is going to play minutes. Semi Ojeleye is going to play minutes. George Hill and Grayson Allen are going to play minutes off the bench. Actually, I don't know that Jordan Nwora plays more than 24, 25, 26 minutes.
Problem is that he's like been offensively a little bit of a catalyst for this team now of late. 15, 14, 21 shot attempts. The first one was absent Chris Middleton. So again, take that with a grain of salt. And they got completely ran over by a train on the 18th. Chris Middleton's been out here for a hot second. So like with Middleton back, that's a big piece to be returning here. It just comes down to like, again, how much do you project Thanasis for? This news came out later. Nwora should be underrepresented compared to what he would have been had we had that news before lock that he was starting. So all of the factors together, you just kind of have to make an educated decision here. We still have 22 minutes. We'll go through some prize picks, but I definitely think that he enters the conversation. I might have been a little bit hyperbolic there saying that he's like the best projected play, but I literally have him projected for 30 fantasy points right now at 4,500. I don't know how that isn't a good value.
Yeah, I think I gave him a lot less minutes than you. He's in play for me, but I gave him 25 minutes, which just doesn't get me to quite that projection. I still have to give minutes to guys like Wes Matthews, Rodney Hood. And like I said, I didn't have Sandro playing minutes before that anyway. We do have another Nwora related question here. And I have a pretty clear answer, but maybe you feel differently about me based on what you just said. From Josh North 24, do you like Nwora or Barnes for FanDuel single entry? I still prefer Harrison Barnes.
Yeah, for one lineup. And again, they're just like completely different price points, like not even remotely on the same planet for price points. So there should be other factors that go into it. But if you have like a 2v2 that you're contemplating between, and I don't know what that, X and Y variables are in that piece, I will just say that Harrison Barnes flat out straight up fantasy points.
All right, let's get on over to Prize Picks now. I have OddsShopper pulled up, Eric. Go over to Prize Picks. I'm going to read off some of these guys, and we can talk about the Milwaukee Bucks right now, because right off the bat, I think this is the team that we're already discussing with Jordan Nwora. But I'm also curious to see how some of our projections over at Awesemo.com using OddsShopper compare to some of the stuff that's over on Prize Picks. So I'm curious, what do we have for Grayson Allen props over on Prize Picks? Because to me, all these unders are going to look really good now.
I just bet my entire account balance on the under of 13.5 points for Grayson Allen. So you should, everybody should go do that because that's a great idea.
What are some of the other props that are available for Grayson Allen?
I'm going through them all here as we're doing this live. 3.5 rebounds. That seems very high for the situation now. 1.5 assists. Fantasy score. Let's find him here. He is not listed there for fantasy score. I just think you want to get every dollar you possibly can here on Grayson Allen shorting him.
How many minutes do you think Grayson Allen plays today?
See, that's the really mind-blowing thing. Because like for all intents and purposes, it could be something where they want to give Drew Holiday a little bit of ball handling duty off. But like Grayson Allen, not generally the guy. George Hill should be still playing the backup point guard there. It's such a weird thing for Grayson Allen, who has literally started every game he's appeared this entire season, to all of a sudden be coming off the bench. And I will say, I'm still going to be paying attention to this beat writer. Do you remember a couple days ago when they just released the wrong starting lineup and they said Hood was starting, and then all of a sudden it was Nwora?
That was that Hood got hurt warming up though, right?
No, they released it like 5 minutes before tip. They had the starting lineup out there, and then all of a sudden the game started and Nwora was starting.
Yeah, but that's because Rodney Hood got hurt after.
Okay, I didn't see that. I just saw that they released the starting lineup and it was flat out wrong.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure what happened. They released the starting lineup and then Rodney Hood got hurt, like stretching or something right after that. I think it was a hamstring injury, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. Or it was it was Achilles soreness. But yeah, he was warming up for the game. It was like, hey, I'm not feeling right, and they didn't play him.
That's crazy. Yeah. You want to just be playing the under on Grayson Allen, 13.5 points, like immediately right now. That's my favorite one out of the grouping. There's a 2.5 3-pointers made prop, which is kind of fascinating as well. Like that's just a big number to be looking at for a guy that there's a lot of minutes uncertainty. I mean, we had him for around 30 before 32, and now there's no way that I can project him for close to that.
Yeah, I give him 28.
Okay.
I still think he's the first guy off the bench for them.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It'll be him coming in with, Rodney Hood in that first rotation.
Yeah, Rod Hood, Wes Matthews.
Wes Matthews is now effective and out there, 12 minutes of him. God, if Wes Matthews plays 20 minutes and Nwora plays like 24, I'm going to be so upset. Like very, very visibly upset. Like Paul George upset.
Oh, that's a
Yeah.
disappointment that the game is going to have to, that the show ends in 17 minutes because Eric is going to be weeping later. And it is going to be an absolute shame that is not going to be live content. Yeah, I think
Sorry.
so. I think this hurts the minutes for Grayson Allen, but I don't think this means he's just playing like totally cut back minutes. I still think we're seeing upper 20s minutes from him.
God, yeah, upper 20s minutes. Yeah, 28. That's the right number to have in there. But on Prize Picks, once again, 13.5 points, too high for Grayson Allen.
So another player whose prop that we like quite a bit right now on Odd Shopper is Drew Holiday for under 7.5 assists. Let's see, what do I have him at? And what is he at on Prize Picks? 7.5 assists.
7.5 is the exact number.
I think I have Drew Holiday projected a little bit higher than we do. I would, if I had to pick a side of over under 7.5, I would lean towards the under, but it's a stay away for me. I think it's fairly efficient, especially with all these guys out for the Bucks. One thing that is maybe a little bit of a concern for these guys is what happens if the game's a blowout, because the Rockets are absolutely abysmal. Mm-hmm. But they've played a little bit better over the last month. They've actually been much better ever since Jalen Green got hurt. Drew Holiday, do you have any strong opinion on that over under 7.5 assists?
I don't have a strong lean one way or the other. I think that's pretty representative of what I'm expecting here. Looking at our projections here, shorting his rebounds would kind of be more of the number I'm looking at, 5 for him. You can only play one prop for each player in any kind of a build. I can't play his rebounds and his assist prop simultaneously or something like that. And so because I prioritize his under of 5 rebounds a little bit more, tougher for me to get to. Plus, if I'm looking to short that Grayson Allen prop, you have to play at least 2 players from 2 different teams. So I'm looking at Grayson Allen being the main guy from Milwaukee in any kind of a 2-piece parlay, playing him with something else. That's kind of my preferred route, but less than the 5 rebounds is my favorite Drew Holiday prop.
All right, we've got some points right out of the gate in this Atlanta-Orlando game.
Oh,
we are only 3 minutes into the game, and Atlanta's already put 11 points up on the board. Cam Reddish has hit a couple of threes. We've got John Collins has already put up 4 points and an assist. And that's really all the production so far. A rebound for Gorgie Jang, an assist for Delon Wright. No stats yet for Skylar Mays. On the Magic side of the game, no stats for Robin Lopez yet. Okiki is 2 points and a steal. Not too much going on. I've had the game I have on right now is the Cavs Celtics game, which has been not so thrilling to watch so far today.
So for everybody who hasn't had a chance to play Prize Picks today, they also have a promotion going where if you spend a certain allocation, I believe it's like if you spend $100, you get 25 back in promo money. This is basically like taking a lot of the rake or anything that you might be looking at out of the equation. Plus, when we have the free projections on the Prize Picks for the Prize Picks tool, it's completely free to you on the NBA tab on the Awesemo website. Go combine those two together. I just kind of max the whole thing because I want to get the most I can out of that promotion. And it's just a really nice way of building a bankroll. Plus, if Okongwu can just stay under 21 fantasy points, I'm going to have a Merry Christmas. And if he doesn't, I'm going to be the Grinch. There you go.
What the hell was that pass by Robert Williams? But watching Taco fall is hilarious because he's just gigantic and he has no other discernible skills other than he's really big.
Somebody said he had 7 already.
I think it's 2 points and he does. Yeah, he has 2 points and 4 rebounds in 3 minutes.
Jesus.
Taco Fall night. We done screwed up, Eric. We done screwed up.
We done screwed up playing better center plays. I apologize, everyone.
Yeah. If I will be absolutely furious.
Yeah.
If Taco Fall scores more fantasy points than Nikola Jokic tonight.
I'm going to be in a bad place, but I will say Rubio said I loved him. 2-2-1. Nice little start for him.
Yeah, he's at the free throw line last I looked out of the corner of my eye. And looking at some of the other stuff that's available to us on Prize Picks today, Chimezie Metu, we really like in our projections the over for 6.5 rebounds. I do as well. We talked about Rashawn Holmes likely being active and the impact on Metu. I don't really think it's going to impact Metu. I'm totally fine with going over 6.5 rebounds. The question just becomes, is his number 6.5 rebounds on Prize Picks?
That is always the question. Again, you want to be cross-referencing it, taking a look at both our projections, what other books might have it listed at, and seeing that number here. But Chemeze Metu, I believe, is 7 rebounds is the number that we're looking at. So what do you think about it at that number?
7.5. That's
It's
a little
seven,
more efficient.
seven,
Seven. I'm still okay with over 7.
Okay.
7.5.
Yeah, you get the
would've been
winner
pretty
on
efficient
8.
to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not so bad. Robert Williams at the line. That's a nice. Let's just
Yeah.
get him on the board. 1-1-1. Let's go.
He did make the first one. So I like over 7 rebounds for Chemeze Metu. I think that's one thing we've hit on here that we both agree with quite a bit. What are some of the Jokic props? Because he's somebody who I just think at sports books, they've not really accounted for his rebounds properly. I have him projected for a whole bunch of boards, even with guys like Aaron Gordon and JaMychal Green being active. What are the numbers for Jokic?
13.5. I think that's a gigantic number. Actually, if there's anything that I would be looking at for Jokic, one of the better ones from our prop tool, looking at the shorting of 8 assists. Again, you're invested in Jokic and you're shorting 8 assists, probably a little bit counterintuitive, but that's kind of what it is when you see the number there. I think his rebound prop, that is very, very efficient looking at it right now. Let me see what we have in for him right now in terms of rebounds. 13.85. That is a boatload of rebounds, but that is like dead efficient. 51% expected win percentage. Complete stay away from me there.
Yeah, no reason to go to those Jokic props. And I just kind of do find it interesting to talk about some of these players and how they project from a prize picks perspective versus how we might view them in DFS. What is the fantasy point projection for Jokic?
58. So I was just looking at that. And that one's kind of interesting because, if you follow the scoring, you can look at the scoring chart there for NBA for what the fantasy score is going to be. I believe it goes in line with FanDuel scoring here. So we're looking at 58. That's going to be a little bit on the low side. I think that might be an all right spot to be going and investing in him, taking the over of that. But I guess we have him at 56.5. That's just such an efficient prop. Generally, some of these studs are going to have more of the efficient numbers. And it's just going to be tough to find any kind of a value for them. Like for me, my big stand is a Kungwu, who's like number 95 in terms of like raw fantasy point projection that we have here on this slate. So something like that. What's the smirk for? What's the smirk for?
No,
I thought
nothing.
I thought a Kungwu was like in and just absolutely beasting or something, and I was going to cry.
No, I just wasn't sure if Alex was still watching because I have some devastating news. I don't know. Alex Caruso out 7 to 10 weeks 7 to 10 days. Never mind. That was a faulty tweet first. 7. Okay, so much better. 7 to 10 days. Alex Caruso is going to be out. Derrick Rose is going to be out for 8 weeks after undergoing ankle surgery. So Derrick Rose out 8 weeks, 7 to 10 days for Alex Caruso. Let's look at some of the other projections for fantasy points over on Prize Picks, and let's just compare some of the chalk plays that we're looking at. Probably FanDuel, it's the same scoring. FanDuel scoring, same as Prize Pick scoring. Let's compare some of those numbers to the projections we have.
Love it.
All right. Who are the most popular players that are yet to play? How about Paul George? Paul George currently projected for 42% ownership on FanDuel. He had a fairly cheap price point over there compared to his price point on DK. So Paul George projected for right around that 40% number. What's the over-under on fantasy points for him?
48 is the number we're looking at. Again, it feels a little bit like it's just so efficient. It's a very, very efficient number to be looking at. 45, if anything, I'd be looking to short it. I think, a lot of people do kind of tend to aim for some of the overs here. We play DFS. You're coming in from that perspective. It's definitely going to be closer to an under for both Joker at 58, which sounds counterintuitive because I love him and I rostered a bunch. And same thing for Paul George. 48 just seems a little bit high underneath FanDuel scoring.
Yeah, I like the under there. I mean, if he actually scores 48, he's just going to crush for FanDuel. And maybe I guess it's what people are expecting based on the ownership number. And I think that Paul George is worth getting to a lot on FanDuel, but that doesn't mean I have him projected for 48 fantasy points. He's 9,200. I have him for 45. So give me the under there for sure.
I'm looking at the scoring chart again. We got NBA 0.1. So points 1.
It's the same as FanDuel.
1.2. Exact same FanDuel. I wanted to make sure that I double checked so that I didn't speak out of turn or give somebody bad advice. Yep. You know everything.
Why am I even here?
Honestly, this should be a single stream event, right?
Well, I need somebody else to talk while I'm
Tyler,
updating.
shut
While I'm
up. Don't
uploading.
do that.
I need somebody else. I need somebody to talk while I'm uploading my lineups, or else we.
Oh,
would-
I can talk, baby. I got you covered.
Yes,
I
you
got you
can.
covered.
You could talk to a puppet. You could sing. You've got
Quack, quack.
all kinds of talents. Have we gotten any? All right, no super chats while we're on the show. Just checking to make sure. And here's somebody else who's relevant to talk about. We got a super chat question before. Somebody asked about Harrison Barnes. We got a question in our premium Discord chat where somebody asked about Harrison Barnes. One of the props that we do like quite a bit in our projections, and I'm actually on board with this as well, is over 17.5 real life points for Harrison Barnes. What is his over under for points on Prize Picks?
Ooh, let me find Harrison Barnes here.
Harry
So going through.
Barnes.
Harry, I took care of it. 31.5 fantasy score. 31.5 there. Was that what we were asking? 31.5?
No, real life points.
Real life points. Much better important information here. We are looking at him not the 18.5. There it is. 18.5.
It's a little different than what other sports books have. So 18.5, I'd probably be staying away from. 17.5 would have been an over. We currently have Harrison Barnes project for 19.6 real life points. I have him for a shade under 19. So I would have liked the over on the 17.5. By the way, if you guys go over to OddsShopper right now, you could check what books have that 17.5 available. I would recommend finding a spot where you could bet the over 17.5. 18.5, a little more efficient for me. How do you feel about 18.5?
18.5 seems pretty efficient. Again, we can be selective about the places we want to go. Obviously, for me, made my stands. By the way, Bogdanovich just checking in here now for Skylar May. So good to at least see him in, because I think he came in a little bit lower owned, just obviously coming off the bench. I don't know what those minutes look like, but could he shoot a bunch out there alongside Cam Reddish, John Collins, Delon Wright, and Okongwu? Yeah, he absolutely could. So might be an all right spot still. But looking at 18.5, that's just way too efficient for me.
By the way, the Hawks had 11 points with 9.5 minutes left in the first quarter. There is 5.5 minutes left in the first quarter. They still have 11 points. So some of these chalk value plays, Eric, not looking good. Are we sweating this?
No, because I have Jordan Nwora coming up here for the hammer. I have Jordan Nwora, who's coming. He's going to be the Nwora warrior of my lineups, ready to rock. Ready to rock, son.
Here, the chalk players are doing well. We've got John Collins. He's at 4 points, 2 rebounds, and an assist in 6 minutes. Cam Reddish has 7 points and a block. Skylar Mays, a rebound and no other stats. Delon Wright, a rebound and an assist. Gorgie Jang, a rebound and no other points. Things are getting a little sweaty in here, Eric. Little tilty.
Yeah,
little
bit. Yeah, it's getting interesting. But you know what? Again, that's why we have Nwora. Also, now I'm just, what are you supposed to do? Like, what are we supposed to do in this spot? There's a lot of basketball left. This is also, if they were playing somebody else other than a 6-25 Orlando Magic team, maybe I'd be freaking out, but I'm not.
Yeah, we panic, Eric. We're not we freak out.
We got to keep our composure.
No, we freak out. We leave here. We immediately start drinking and we order a whole bunch of food. We get ready for a long night. That's what we do when your players don't perform up to par in the first 5 minutes of a game. You freak out.
Okay, you talked me into it.
Yeah, there we go. It was a tough sell. You know what else you could do though? You go to Prize Picks. You sign up using the promo code OSMO. You get that $100 bonus, and then you're back you're back ahead for the night. How about Eric Bledsoe? Because we do like the overs for Eric Bledsoe over on OddsShopper, and I always like to talk about a little bit of Eric Bledsoe. What are his numbers on Prize Picks?
Baby, I'm here to talk some Eric Bledsoe because he's not even there on the points prop. So there's that. Let's go to fantasy score. He's not listed for that either. It looks like people just aren't interested in betting Eric Bledsoe props, which is very, very sad to me. I'm looking up and down. Nope, nothing listed for Eric Bledsoe there on the old Prize Picks, but I will say there's a number of other guys that seem to be getting some love over there. Nicholas Batum, 8.5 points is kind of fascinating. I don't know how much he's going to play here, but you could react to that starting lineup awfully quick. Terrence Mann, Vika Zubats is listed there. 10.5 points seems larger for him as well. Paul George up to 28.5 points. I think that's pretty darn efficient for what we're expecting. So there are some other spots to go for this Clippers team, but nothing too appealing with no Eric Bledsoe there. Because of course I would have been taking the overs everywhere with you.
Yeah, so here's probably what happened with Eric Bledsoe. Most likely, anyway. I believe that everybody that has a Prize Picks account probably took all the overs on Eric Bledsoe and like, oh my God, this is a massive liability for us. We can't have Eric Bledsoe props post anymore because everybody knows he's going to score 30 real life points today, and they had to take it down. So that is the probably what happened there. But
all right, everybody pause. Everybody pause.
Yes.
Lance Stevenson is checked into the basketball game for the Atlanta Hawks. Lance freaking Stevenson is back in the NBA, baby. How's it feel? That's beautiful. I can't believe I'm looking at this.
Oh, by the way, Grayson Allen apparently not going to play today, it looks like.
Oh, that's gigantic news. Make sure you don't have any Allen in your life.
So let's see if I could find any more info. So apparently he's not on the floor warming up. It was a little weird he's not in the starting lineup. I don't know if this means he's out, but I'm definitely skeptical.
Let me double check. I had 0.6% of him, so I only have to like change one build. I basically assumed that he was like lower in terms of minutes. That's good information to get now. Way to go, beat writers.
So there's a couple of things here. One, he's not on the floor right now. There is another beat reporter saying that he did warm up earlier. I don't want any part of the situation. It's weird that he's not starting. It's weird that he wasn't on the court for warmups. We've seen the Bucks kind of do weird things with guys they rest. I don't know this means for sure that Grayson Allen isn't going to play or anything like that, but it gives me, I wasn't getting to Grayson Allen anyway. I'd proceed with caution here.
It gives me pause. Also, 83% Delon Wright really looking great with his 1.75 so far. This is not ideal.
He got more fantasy points? What did he do?
Oh my God, I don't want to talk.
Oh, he got a rebound.
Yeah.
Good for. Oh no, he has a rebound, assist, and a turnover though. So that's 2 turnovers.
Idiot, you dumb.
We've got. So it looks like I assume now we're just gonna get 24 minutes out of Jeng, 24 minutes out of Okongo. I don't feel great about that. Taco Fall checked out.
Oh, but a charge. Okongo, that's 2 personal fouls. Let's go.
Oh, now they're just gonna have to play Gorgie Jeng all those minutes.
That would be beautiful.
Let's try to give the people, Eric, one final thing to look at on Prize Picks. Preferable. Oh, actually, we can only look at the Clippers Kings game. This other game is going to lock in like 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Clippers Kings. Throw me one player you think we should be looking at for tonight.
I'm looking to short Metu, just kind of pending Rashawn Holmes. I think that actually cuts into some of his minutes. Tristan Thompson, I don't think it just gets eradicated from the rotation. It's not a 1-for-1 situation. I know that you like Metu a lot, regardless of situation, but for me, that might be the one piece of news that goes a little bit under the radar.
All right. Well, we currently have Metu projected for 8.1 rebounds today. So that is a slight lean towards the over on Odd Shopper. Could Rashawn Holmes being back impact his minutes potentially? I don't think it will. Actually, Taco Fall just checked back in. Speaking of random players getting minutes today. But other than that, guys, thank you very much for watching. If you are going to sign up for Prize Picks for the first time, do it using the promo code Awesemo. Not only do you get up to $100 bonus on your first deposit, you also get 1 free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. Good luck today, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.